Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was Kaguya's reborn beloved, and Kaguya, Hinata, Ino, Tamari, Mei and Yugao fell for him Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Uzumaki Naruto knew he was different from normal people. It wasn't a sudden epiphany that told him such, or the way people tended to ignore him or occasionally hurt him at worst, glare at him at best. He just felt it in his bones, in his eyes, his skin, the way he breathed deeply and exhaled sharply. There was always something in the air, something that pressed into him subtly telling him the world was far more than it let on. He honestly couldn't describe it as a child, the very words eluding him in a gossamer web that forever broke, their fragility falling about at the lightest touch of his mind. He knew he was different, but the how and why remained at the edge of his mind, begging for realization yet too far to truly reach. He thought to ask his providers, the orphan handlers who kept him segregated from the other children, but all he'd get in answer were snorts, or harsh rebukes telling him to go back to his room and shut up. Naruto didn't really know anyone else to ask. He never received visitors himself like some of the other children did before they disappeared. What happened to them? He didn't know, but something told him they were still nearby yet far away at the same time, a kind of feeling. Confused, lacking answers, he could only count his blessings. His room in the orphanage was windowed. It let him see the outside world, its varying colors and expressions of life, but more importantly it let the moon shine down from on high. The moon, its white reflective surface casting a soft light over the collections of buildings that made up home. That feeling at the edge of his mind, that he was different, that the world was so much more and yet simplistic him as he gazed upon the celestial body. Beloved. He frowned as only his 3-year-old self could, whisker marks deepening as his cheeks scrunched up. The word whispered into his mind as he stared skyward. What did it mean? He knew not, but it filled him with a quiet tranquility he could not ever remember feeling. From the age of 3, whenever he looked at the moon, he felt that wonderful sensation and always questioned, always wondered, why does the moon love me? He was 5 when he first realized he saw things differently from other people, shortly before realizing the truth ever hovering at the edge of his consciousness. To him the world was a mask of colors that surrounded everything, be it the children playing in the parks to the people shopping at market, even the very sound of a word carried color within as it echoed from the mouths of the people whose collection of homes he resided in. Uzumaki Naruto did not realize these colors, these auras that encapsulated all things wasn't something the others could see, not until he stumbled on a puppet show during some kind of festival. The puppet master controlled small wooden puppets dressed up a variety of ensembles, most notable being a kind of green fabric that formed a vest of some kind. One puppet stood out from the others, possessing a yellow head of fur while wearing a white coat. Naruto watched the man perform a small play, something to do with the great Yondaime Hokage doing battle with an evil, nefarious demon. Watched as the white-coated puppet with blonde hair flew across the stage and attacking an amusing-looking thing with 9 thick cords of hair twisted taut and hammered into look like tails. It wasn't the puppets that drew his attention, however. Tiny strings of light extended from his fingers, attaching themselves to various points along the puppets' bodies as the puppet master made them dance to the story he was telling. These threads, it was different from the normal lights he saw from everyday people, or plants, or even the minuscule motes trapped in rocks. They sang, a beautiful melody that reverberated in his heart with each pluck of the string. He listened to that music, understood its tone, and then suddenly he knew. Chakra. That voice inside whispered, dulcet tones sending a shiver through his body. Memory. Soul. Experience. Life. Death. Beautiful scattered chakra, begging to be understood, to be whole. Naruto was mesmerized. He had to know more. Hey mister. The puppet master, a severe-looking man with one eye and an X-shaped scar on his chin glanced up at the sound of his shout. Yes. How'd ya make those chakra strings? The blonde asked. Children that had surrounded the puppet master murmured in annoyance. A particularly mean dark-haired boy with glasses snapped, stupid. There's no strings. He's making the puppets dance with magic. Wah. The Uzumaki boy blinked, glancing at the kids, but I can see them. PFF'd. Liar. One child shouted, a pink-haired girl with a red ribbon in her hair. Chakra isn't visible. Said so in my book. The puppet master stared thoughtfully at the child despite the heckling he was getting. He flung his hand out, chakra strings shooting free and flying towards the child. Naruto didn't even try to dodge. The music, that sweet music hummed by the strings, was calm, soothing, promising no harm. It touched him briefly, freezing him as he felt life flowing through him. A memory of a young spiky-haired boy practicing jutsu, of frustration at having to work 3 times harder than that stupid Hiruzen just to make half as much progress, of determination to defend this gathering of buildings that made this village what it was, Konoha. The Uzumaki blinked, the strings detaching and vanishing as the puppet master frowned thoughtfully, before shrugging whatever he was thinking about off and returning to his puppet show. Naruto didn't understand, couldn't comprehend what had just happened. He was scared, so he turned and ran, back to the only place he was safe in this collection of buildings called Konoha. His room was dark, illuminated only by the full moon's light creeping in through the window. The orphanage was quiet, all the children and most of their caretakers out and about during the festival. Kyuubi's Festival of Defeat. The words sprung into his mind no matter how much he wished they wouldn't. Naruto gripped his hair, eyes closed tightly as he tried to make sense of this invading knowledge. It wasn't the normal voice he heard, lacked the softness and care he had come to love. It was hard, clinical, so eerie similar to that puppet master's voice. What's happening? He cried, trying to quell the random surges of images, of knowledge warping through his brain so fast he just couldn't keep up with it. Chakra. Strings. These feelings came with the strings. Yet why? He just didn't understand. Memories. He heard that woman's voice again, reflexively gazing at the moon as the word rumbled through his mind. Chakra. Memories. Experience. Life. She explained, voice like a soothing rag wiping away his fear and doubt. Naruto bit his lip thoughtfully. If chakra is soul, is life, then it has the memories of the one who made it. That made sense. If that was true, then when that old man reached out and touched him with chakra, he also reached out with his soul and his memories. If he was remembering things about that mon's life, then he must still have some of his chakra inside him. If it was still inside him, then he'd keep getting those flashes of memories and understanding. I have to get rid of it. He scowled. Not rid of it. Her voice again, the one who called him her beloved. Make it yours, accept it, become one and remember what it was like to be true. Naruto winced, an uncomfortable feeling blossoming in his stomach. Make it mine. How do I? He hissed, falling to the ground on his knees as his stomach burned. He desperately pulled his shirt up, blue eyes wide in surprise at the angry red spiral mark glowing dastardly around his navel, surrounded on all sides by strange squiggly lines. Enough. Her voice commanded. Gone was that softness he so adored, in its place a biting edge that demanded supplication. He froze in shock as a ghostly pale hand the color of moonlight reached forward from seemingly nowhere, a long slender digit poking the glowing red seal on his belly and causing the pain to immediately fade as if it never was. Naruto shivered, following that hand with his eyes, following it until he found the ethereal-like woman who it belonged to. The very sight of her sent his blood pumping, his brain screaming, his heart pounding and his soul quivering in a rapturous joy he could barely comprehend. The name. Her name ripped through his skull. Kaguya, he whispered. Her pale reflective eyes so like the moon twinkled with mirth, even as she smiled sadly. Beloved. She spoke, but her lips did not move. It was in his mind, in his soul, and he could see that hidden knowledge kept always on the outer edge of his mind. We married. The 5-year-old whispered in awe as he remembered those blissful days, before their ascension, before their journey to the Shinju for its fruit, before they were betrayed by their own children. Reach you. I've tried. She murmured. Time, so much time lost. I died. Naruto grimaced, holding his head and trying to make sense of things. It was all disjointed, memories of feather-light touches mixing with brutal carnage as the ages of war and death drenched the lands in blood. A journey, a dream of peace, a shared fruit that would see all the needless death end. 2 sons, joyous, beautiful, then dark and spiteful. Betrayal, ripped his strength from his soul, turned it against their own mother to seal her away. His soul frayed, torn, he was dying yet he refused to let it end. Migration, yet, alive, once more. She seemed confused, her figure fading slightly as a cloud covered up the moon, cutting its luminescence in half. Our sons. Dead. Yet one. A desperate hope for freedom. Naruto grimaced. It was all so confusing. Like a tempest had erupted in his mind and refused to let anything become calm so he could organize his thoughts. I remember. They touched you, sealed you, but a body dropped from you before the end. Black. Like an oil. It surged near me, yellow eyes seeing the world for the first time. The blonde grimaced, feeling a phantom pain of horror clenching his heart at the similarities. Born in time to lose his parents, to never know their caress, their love. He chuckled sadly, just like me. Kaguya titled her head, hair like snow drifting up on an invisible wind. He struggles to free me. To find that love he was denied. Good. Naruto grunted, feeling so very tired. Kaheim, remind me so I don't forget in my slumber, what is chakra? Everything. She murmured. Chakra is everything. It needs to be whole once more. Hey. The blonde transmigrant chuckled softly, falling on his back as sleep began to claim him. I can't remember my name. Here I'm, Uzumaki Naruto, but what was my name before I died? Kaguya smiled, drifting to hover over his diminutive form. He watched her float over him, easing lower and lower even as his consciousness grew dim. Beloved. She murmured in his thoughts even as she gently kissed his lips. Oblivion claimed him then, its sweet embrace reminding him of the warm embraces he once shared with his wife. Waking up wasn't an easy task for Uzumaki Naruto. He did not mean the physical act of drifting between unconsciousness and consciousness. Such a thing happened on its own, and would continue happening so long as this body of flesh and blood remained as such. No, the waking up he was talking about was one of the soul. His chakra, locked so tight before now, had loosened when he had been flooded with the scattered memories of a being known as Shimura Danzo, and through that he had finally connected with her. Perhaps the event would have happened on its own, years from now when, if he had chosen to become the heartless butchers known as shinobi. Yet he was glad it hadn't, because now he remembered. Kaguya, his wife, his princess, his beloved. Uzumaki Naruto didn't know everything about his past, but he remembered enough. And from that small remembrance and his own observations, he realized the ultimate ending Hagoromo and Himura's betrayal had wrought upon this world. The cycle of war and death had begun anew, the humans forgetting the serene law his beloved had set in place to stop the ceaseless fighting. For that alone he wanted the world to burn, to wither and die in the fires of judgment. Yet it wasn't for him to decide, he knew, it was for his beloved when and if she ever awoke from the dark betrayal of their children. He was content with that. Why the hell do I have to do this? Sarutobi Hiruzen grumped, gently opening the door to a certain someone's room in the Hasagawa orphanage. As expected, the room was tidy and neat, its sole occupant staring out the window with a curious look on his cherub-like features. The aged Hokage spared a moment to inspect the boy, to see how he had been holding up all these years in his relative isolation. His hair, it struck Sarutobi as odd. Memories of bright spiky blonde hair danced in his mind, of the boy's father, of the child's hair when he had seen him all those years ago shortly after the Kyuubi attack. Yet Naruto's hair wasn't spiky or entirely blonde anymore, those spikes drooping almost entirely flat as silvery hair intermingled with blonde here and there, giving him an almost regal look despite knowing the boy hadn't ever bothered to so much as comb his hair, much less style it. So odd. Not like his father's, and certainly not like his mother's. Thoughts of those two people gripped his heart, part of him furious, another terribly sad, and perhaps a small part absolutely fearful when, or if, that particular cluster would come back and bite them in the. Sarutobi sighed, shaking that thought off. Ah, Uzumaki Naruto. The boy didn't move as he spoke, his tone soft, almost musical in quality. Sarutobi Hiruzen, third Hokage, interesting. Oh, the old man was impressed. Not many youngsters really knew about him, always so fascinated with the fourth Hokage and his heroic achievements. You know of me, know of you. The silvery blonde turned slowly, and Sarutobi stood shocked at his eyes. Oceanic blue. He remembered his eyes that brief time he saw him as a child, yet they were different now. Still blue, but like his hair, interwoven with the lightest hints of silver. No. The boy shook his head, seeming confused. Sorry, I'm kinda distracted. The third Hokage frowned, then shrugged it off. No matter. He glanced around the sparse room. I've been told you'll be receiving your own apartment today. Since you turned 6, the policy is so in order to make room for new arrivals, and get you used to caring for yourself. Okay. The boy shrugged, gathering what little belongings he owned before following after the man. Sarutobi was quite curious about the young Uzumaki boy. He moved calmly, serenely through the village and didn't seem at all bothered by the quite contempt-filled looks they were receiving. He was either very good at ignoring them, or at such peace nothing could pierce it to bother him. The old monkey was willing to put money on the former, the latter would be too preposterous. You don't want to be here. Naruto spoke as they entered his assigned apartment complex. Oh, what gave you that idea? The old man gently prodded. He wouldn't deny it. He didn't want to be here, wasn't supposed to be his responsibility anymore. You breath your irritation without restraint. The child shrugged. Frankly, Sarutobi was surprised the boy even knew what the word, irritation, meant. Someone else should be doing this, you believe, but they won't. The boy frowned thoughtfully. Why? I honestly have no idea what you're talking about, young man. Sarutobi returned neutrally, even if internally he was a little creeped out. In either case, we're here, let me show you around and then I'll explain the monthly stipend you'll be receiving, as well as your responsibilities concerning your entry into the Shinobi Academy. Naruto didn't much care what was bothering the old man, and was only all too happy when he left. His apartment was fine enough, he supposed. The lights worked, the water ran hot and cold as needed, everything was in working order. Yet there was something else here, something, like a prying eye watching him from the corners. He could hear it faintly, the music that sang to him when chakra was present and free. He followed the sound, eyes narrowing as he approached the wall next to his bed. Putting his ear against wood, the musical tone of chakra became louder. Why would they scatter chakra behind a wall? The question burned in his mind. Only one way to find out. He stepped back, lifted his hand with index finger extended. A sharp blaze of silvery white chakra erupted on his fingertip. So, difficult to control. He frowned in realization, not at all used to not being 100% in control of himself. To be expected, he guessed. This body was not his original, did not know the millions of myriad ways he had trained himself to make his chakra flow just the way he liked it. No matter, time is all I need. The Uzumaki focused mentally, bringing the burning fire of chakra down bit by bit, forming a razor-sharp edge as he concentrated more and more on the essence of all things. Satisfied it was sharp enough, he dug his finger into the wood and began to cut. Like a knife through butter, his chakra point cut an oval shape through the wood, which he removed and carefully set on his bed before peering in. Fuinjutsu. Danzo's voice rumbled in his head as he peered inside. Squiggly lines not unlike the ones on his stomach were pressed into the wall, expanding far beyond what he could actually see through the little portal. Chakra suppression, triggered through the ox hand sign, designed to sap chakra in the area and utilize a mid-level Raiden jutsu to incapacitate those within. The Shimura's voice explained. Not a building to live in. Naruto grimaced, but a gilded cage, a prison. Well, that wasn't something he was going to stand. Pressing his hand against the seal, he slowly, subtly began to draw the chakra into himself. As with Danzo, he felt life flow into him, specifically the life of the person who drew and powered the seal to begin with. An older man, with blindingly white spiky hair and a penchant for perversion, and yet underneath it all, a sadness for everything he had done in his life. Naruto didn't much care for that, frankly he didn't much care to have Danzo's voice in his head either. The seal drained, useless, the blonde-haired boy sat down on his bed in a lotus position, allowing his eyes to close as he focused on his chakra, and more importantly, the chakra of Danzo and this Jiraiya he had consumed. Time to strip the chafe. Well, how'd it go? Sarutobi paused, hand on the door to his home. He glanced back, seeing the boy who had once been his pupil leaning against the post of his porch, face blank, posture stiff. He sighed, dropping his hand and turning around, about as expected. The child did not resist, did not even seem to care he was being moved. Jiraiya grunted, looking away. Sorry. You're damn right you should be sorry. Sarutobi snapped, feeling a smidgen of anger over the entire debacle. You trained that worthless fool, and for what? So he can become Hokage and throw away his own son because a few pissants threw a fit about Kyuubi. The white head grimaced, never imagined it would come to this. Hiruzen sighed, remaining quiet for a time. Perhaps he shouldn't be the one to harass his student about the mistakes they've made. After all, he had allowed his own preference and feelings for Orochimaru stand in the way of ending the madman before he could escape and do God knows what to more innocence. Ironic. He suddenly realized. Like him, Jiraiya had a student he could not bring himself to correct, too filled with love to see the damage they were doing. It was rather hypocritical of him, now that he thought about it. Hopefully he'll realize his mistake before it's too late. Jiraiya looked at him hopefully, as if he was desperately searching for someone to confirm he was making the right choice. Orochimaru didn't. Hiruzen shrugged, turning around so he wouldn't see the horrified look on his student's face. And not a day goes by that I don't regret not stopping him. Minato isn't what? The same. He sacrificed his own son to make things easier for himself. Sarutobi spat. Oh me, oh my, I'm so heartbroken with Kushina hovering on death's door. I just can't find it in myself to love the child who by being born was behind all this heartache. The third seethed. The fool forgets he and Kushina both came to me, begged me to remove the seals and let Kushina get pregnant. Jiraiya winced, but said nothing, eyeing the man that was once his sensei sadly. No, Minato has already done all he can to wreck this particular situation, and sees no fault in his actions. Sarutobi spat. In the end, as it has always been, Naruto will bear the burdens forced upon him by people who should know better. And when the time comes, he shrugged, men like me, like you, and like Minato, we'll answer for our crimes in the hottest pits of hell. Late that night, Naruto opened his eyes, gazing thoughtfully at his open-door balcony. He had done it. Absorbed Danzo and Jiraiya's chakra, their knowledge, while removing their pesky personalities and memories. He would not let that ever become one with him, never allow their memories to taint his chakra. To do so would be admitting they existed, would be admitting they were more than random bits of scattered chakra his fool son had created in his stupidity. The knowledge though, he was somewhat impressed. The jutsu, the theory, the half-formed ideas on how to utilize the essence of all in new and varied ways. Whatever else he might think about these humans, he at least would recognize their ingenuity in handling chakra. True, they were ignorant of the truth of it, but even an ignorant person could pick up a burning tree branch after lightning struck and set it on fire. Beloved. The moonlight entering his room shifted, like smoke coalescing and twisting on itself until his Kaheim stood before him in her transparent glory. Naruto hopped from the bed, joining her in the moonlight. He tried to touch her, saddened, though not surprised, as his fingers passed through her form. I miss you. Kaguya giggled, soft and musical as he remembered, you, always were so, needy. Never stop missing them. The young boy shrugged, the trick to staying happily in love. His wife smiled, her clear blank eyes staring into his silvery blue. Zetsu. She whispered within his mind. Sochi. His name is Zetsu. Zetsu. Naruto frowned. Isn't that what we called the remains of those fully absorbed by the Shinju? Kaguya shrugged lightly. A name is a name. He is our son. TCH. The Uzumaki clicked his tongue. Hopefully I can convince him to change his name. Really don't want to call him something linked to those mindless dolls. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck tiredly. If I can't, well, I'll just call him Sochi. The bunny goddess laughed, shaking her head at her beloved's antics. I reached him. So difficult. But he knows. Uzumaki Naruto. He will come. See his father. Naruto smiled brightly at that. I can't wait. The Konoha Shinobi Academy was filled with life, with chakras of all types humming and igniting with a fervor Naruto had never seen from the people who lived in these collections of buildings called Konoha. Truthfully, he had only gone through with the farce of attending a school for butchers as a means to expand his observations of the people who had inherited his traitorous son's will. He needed something to amuse him while he worked his chakra within, molding and constructing his coils just the way he liked it. Now though, now he was glad for it. Children his physical age lined the class, most brimming with excitement at being there, while one, a young girl with eyes so like his Kaheim, exuded nothing but nervous anxiety and dread. Naruto didn't pay them that much attention, their scattered chakras mostly locked within their frames, not yet unleashed like those who belong to clans. He wasn't the least bit surprised at the fearful, or tough looks he was receiving from the children. As children are wont, they were just mimicking their parents and would continue to do such until they were ready to leave their parents' shadows and form opinions of their own. Settle down, settle down. A young man with a ponytail and a deep scar across the bridge of his nose calmly called the class to order. Everyone have a seat. Good. Roll call. Naruto sighed, turning his gaze to the window. He missed Kaguya something fierce, but his beloved was a mere fragment of her true self. A reflection of the moon with limited chakra that had already overtaxed what little reserves she had by appearing before him as she did. He wouldn't be seeing her again, not for a while, not until she recovered. Zetsu hadn't shown up yet, which saddened him, but he knew he would eventually. Uzumaki Naruto. Yes. The silvery blonde glanced towards the teacher. Say present when I call you during roll call. The Chunin returned neutrally, continuing down the list. Ah. Yes. This is going to be a terribly enlightening experience. He mentally snorted. Hatake Kakashi understood many things. Regret, remorse, loss, fear, anxiety, and disappointment were rather big cornerstones. Hard not to when his sensei, the man who was a father to him in all but blood, treated his actual blood son like an unsightly sin best kept as far away and out of his sight as humanly possible. He had never expected it from Minato, and no matter how the man may say differently, the silver-haired Anbu knew this was one mistake that would eventually bite the Hokage in the any change. Karasu intoned over the radio, watching the scene from his perch high above and across the building. He'd never be able to see the target from there, everyone knew, but just in case Naruto decided to buck and run they wanted to have that side covered. None. Target is sitting in class and shows no interest in leaving. Kakashi returned. Curious. Tenzo's flat, neutral voice came back. Observations paint him as impatient, crass, and crude towards everyone. First day. He's probably too excited to be bored yet. Neko. A very recent addition to the corp and a temporary addition to their squad while Baku, the squad's resident Kenjutsu master, visited a doctor concerning a cough that had been worsening over the last few months. Maybe. Inu returned, relaxing in his perch and ready to waste the day watching his sensei's son begin his shinobi career. 2 days later, and Naruto realized he was severely bored again. The classes were designed for 6-year-olds, after all. Focusing on simple things such as reading, writing, arithmetic, all things he either already knew or had learned from Danzo or Jiraiya's chakra. His chakra manipulation was going well, he could already feel the flow of his essence becoming crisper, cleaner, more fluid in his body. Still had a long way to go, though. He glanced around the room, allowing his eyes to delve into the scattered chakra of his classmates. Uchiha Sasuke had the greatest natural reserves next to him, a strong sensation of lightning echoing across it with just the tiniest pinch of fire intermingled. 2 elemental affinities. Naruto frowned at that, examining closely. No, not 2. His primary is lightning, he's developing his fire, probably due to the Uchiha clan's disposition to the element. Interesting he supposed, but hardly noteworthy in his opinion. He glanced to the Hyuga girl, Hinata he thought her name was. He didn't know her at all, she was far too shy and introverted to him, utterly uninteresting if not for her resemblance to his beloved. Just for that reason alone he could stare at her all day, if not for the fact the girl possessed a rather irritating sixth sense, always meeping and flushing bright red whenever he looked at her for more than a handful of seconds. Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka, their teacher, snapped angrily. Stop bothering your classmates and focus on the assignment. Naruto frowned. I'm done. What? The man scowled, stomping up the aisle and ripping his paper from his desk. Eyes narrowing as he read over the information written down, he eventually grunted. So you are. Well, since that's all I had planned for the day, you can leave. Oh. The silvery blonde shrugged as he calmly moved to the door. If I knew I could just leave after finishing I would have left hours ago. He tossed back carelessly as he left the room. Iruka sighed, rechecking the assignment before returning to his desk. He had been hoping to grill some kind of discipline into the boy, anything to trick him out of his cold impassiveness with everything and everyone he met. It was so incredibly frustrating. The boy was intelligent. His assignment proved that, Even the bits of information he was sure wasn't in the book proved he had been doing his reading of an outside the source material. But like most intelligent people, he was withdrawn, introverted, too easily able to see their own flaws and be embarrassed by them. Ah, well, he'd just hope for the best and keep trying. Namikaze Minato hummed lightly, drumming his fingers along his desk as he listened to the latest report on the newest Kyuubi Jinchuriki. It was just easier to label him that way. Let him ignore the twinge of regret growing in his stomach as the days go by. Let him ignore his greatest mistake just for a little bit longer. It's the kind of man he had become, burying himself in his work and responsibilities in order to hide from his failures, to forget as best he could. Ah, the young man performs adequately in all subjects. Iruka continued slowly. His theory is impeccable, his arithmetic detailed and spot on, and what little of history we've gone over he could probably recite to me verbatim. The scarred-nosed Chunin sighed. Frankly, I'd call him a once-in-a-generation genius. Minato nodded, glancing at the crow-masked Anbu. Your report. Subject has unlocked his chakra. How is unknown. Karasu reported neutrally. He is constantly, even during his time at the academy, training to control his chakra by floating 6 leaves across his back, 2 on his chest, and 4 on his legs. The Anbu paused for a moment, adding, his chakra levels are easily Chunin, and I only foresee this rising as he gets older. I see. Minato turned to Kakashi in his Inu mask. He spends all of his free time either in his apartment, at the library, or doing light exercises at the academy training grounds. The silver-haired Anbu sighed. He has little to no contact with the civilians, little to no contact with shinobi outside of the academy, nor does he seem inclined to change that soon. I see. Inoichi. The fourth gave the man a tired look. As things stand, Inoichi grimaced, and based entirely on these observations, and previous ones conducted, he is unlikely to develop loyalty to this village. Kakashi snorted. No surprise there. Not with the way we've been treating him like a lep. Enough. Minato interjected harshly. What do you suggest? A friend for starters. Inoichi shrugged. If he feels no love for the village, having a friend here who he does care for will do much to dissuade any future potential disloyalty. He sighed. Not to mention help him psychologically. Can't even imagine the issues this kid is going to have when it's all said and done. I see. Minato leaned over his desk, fingers steepled as he frowned in thought. Iruka. Don't. The Chunin shook his head. I can try, and will if ordered, but the boy shows clear disinterest, if not outright disdain for authority figures. He frowned thoughtfully. If I had to guess, constant negative reinforcement from adults have made him completely distrusting of us. Well, what do you suggest? The Hokage shot back. None of the children in his class show any interest beyond the negative connotations their parents have taught them. Anyone older is immediately ignored and avoided whenever possible. The boy cannot remain like this. The village must have his, if not love, then loyalty. Uchiha Sasuke. Karasu intoned neutrally. Makoto's boy. Minato frowned thoughtfully. Iruka. The scar-faced Chunin rubbed his chin. I don't think Sasuke and Naru, sorry, that boy have had much in the way of interaction. I guess, maybe a rivalry of sorts. Aside from him and a civilian girl, Sasuke is currently third in rankings, even if it's only based on class work and theory at this point. I see. Minato sighed, giving Karasu a nod. See if you can arrange it then, and keep me updated. He glanced around. Anything else? Dismissed. He waited for them all to leave, steeling himself for what he knew was coming next. Not so surprising. Sensei. The Hokage nodded curtly to the man. Anything to add? Well. Jiraiya scratched his cheek, slumping into the chair opposite Minato. Aside from the usual blame game, not really. Minato grunted, glad they weren't about to start that particular argument again. Any update on Kushina's chakra dissonance? I've asked around, gotten secondary opinions and the like, but it still comes back around to the Kyuubi. Jiraiya explained slowly. Tsunade, as you know, believes the rapid expulsion of the Kyuubi during extraction is what created the dissonance. She thinks reintroducing some could, with proper guidance and oversight, counteract the effects and heal the damage. How much Kyuubi chakra are we talking about here? Jiraiya shrugged uncomfortable. Who knows? A drop, a bucket, a tail, all of it. Who can say exactly? So, in order to heal Kushina I'd have to potentially extract, and sacrifice, that boy. Minato frowned thoughtfully. You mean your son, don't you? Jiraiya snapped back angrily. And don't tell me you're considering it. I'm thinking about Konoha. The Hokage scowled. I'm not saying we grab that boy, pin him down, and transfer the Kyuubi right this second. I am saying you should run some tests, see if what you're suggesting is even possible. And if it is, Jiraiya shot back, if the only way to heal Kushina was to kill the boy, he might survive it. Minato retorted, but he couldn't have been any more damning if he tried. Jiraiya gritted his teeth, standing up abruptly. You're my greatest disappointment. He snapped as he vanished in a swirl of leaves. Alone, left to his thoughts, Minato whispered softly to no one. I know. Naruto felt the river of chakra flowing over him, around him, into and out of him. A stretching exercise, so to speak, for the chakra brimming within his body. Chakra control exercises were helping, of that he had no doubts, but at times he was just frustrated with the amount of time it was taking. Primarily because he did not like this collection of houses that made Konoha. He would never call it a home. He didn't even want to call it a village, as such a term spoke of unity that he knew only existed for the chosen few. Would he have ever called this place home if he hadn't awoken to the truth? He couldn't say. It was but an idle thought he quickly banished as pointless. Father. A voice, almost a dry rasp echoed from behind him. Naruto didn't turn to face it, staring blankly ahead into the forest as he contemplated what his senses were telling him. Zetsu wasn't technically his son, he knew that, but rather a creation of Kaguya's near the time of her sealing and comprised entirely of her yin chakra. Yet perhaps that was a good thing, even a drop of her chakra would do much to help his conditioning. Sochi. He said softly, I had never thought I'd get the chance to meet you. His son did not respond to his words, hesitantly stating, You've been under surveillance, couldn't contact you before now. Naruto frowned, hopping to his feet and turning to face his son. That black oily skin of his, hardened into that of a man with no hair anywhere on his body, framing a pair of oval yellow eyes. The silvery blonde moved up to him, smiling softly, I'm sorry. Black Zetsu blinked, tilting his head curiously, for never getting the chance to do this. Naruto wasted no time in hugging him, felt no disquiet with the oily texture of its skin, or the subtle heat that radiated between them. For not being there to tell you I loved you, for not being strong enough to survive my traitorous son's betrayal, for not being able to stop them from hurting your mother so. Black Zetsu grumbled, hesitantly patting the little boy on the back, I don't know what to say. Naruto pulled back, smiling brightly, you don't need to say anything. I'm back, and though I couldn't be there for you growing up, I'll never leave you again. The plant-like man smiled, actually forming lips with razor-sharp teeth that anyone else would describe as monstrous, but Naruto would only ever see it as his son's beautiful smile. I would like that. After I free mother. He stopped smiling suddenly, a worried look coming over his features. Oh no. What's wrong? Naruto looked around guardedly, stretching his senses but feeling no scattered chakras nearby. You're Uzumaki Naruto. Zetsu grimaced. The Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. I'm the what for the what? The boy blinked. What's a Jinchuriki? Or a Kyuubi? Zetsu paced a bit, eyes slanting in thought. Jinchuriki is the human term for living human sacrifice, which is almost exclusively used for one of 9 individuals who contain the Biju. Kyuubi is the 9-tailed fox, the strongest of the 9. I see. Naruto frowned. And what, Sochi, is a Biju? The plant man blinked, face palming. You died long before. I'm sorry, father. He sighed tiredly. The sage of the 6 paths, Hagoromo, near the end of his life he split the Shinju into 9 fragments he named Biju, the tailed beasts. That fool did what? Naruto was thunderstruck, pale at the mere thought of it. Zetsu nodded sadly, yes. I've been working for nearly 1,000 years to bring the Gedo Mizu, the husk of the 10 tails from the moon. It took so much work, getting a Rinnegan to manifest in this cruel world, but it finally happened. With that I plan to collect and seal all the pieces of the Shinju, of Mother, in order to free her. I see. Naruto frowned, rubbing his chin, so what's the problem? I'd give Kyuubi up gladly to help you, Sochi. Zetsu smiled lightly, before sighing regretfully. Extraction will kill you. I could delay it, but it will happen eventually. Oh, he didn't particularly want to die, but if it was for his Sochi and beloved? Why did Jinchuriki die if their Biju is extracted? Zetsu shrugged. Something to do with their chakra being intertwined. When you extract the Biju, you extract the container's chakra. You take their soul with the Biju. Naruto grunted, not really seeing the problem. So no Jinchuriki has ever survived extraction. But. Zetsu grimaced. She has not so much survived, but rather has not yet died. The previous host for Kyuubi, your shell's mother, Uzumaki Kushina. The silvery blonde twitched at that. He had a mother. Okay. So she was probably dying, but to know his mother was still alive made him feel strange. So I'm not as much of an orphan as I thought. He chuckled ruefully at that. Orphan. Zetsu blinked. No, your mother is incapacitated, but your father is still very much alive. Alive. Naruto scowled. Who is he? The Hokage. Namikaze Minato. The Jinchuriki couldn't believe this. All this time, all these years of being glared at and practically spat on, and his freaking father was the fourth Hokage himself. The betrayal. He snarled, fists clenched tightly, to be alive and spit on your son. To leave him wallowing in misery while you live the cherished life. Zetsu simply stood there, letting him rant and rage about it all. After a handful of minutes, Naruto managed to calm down and speak. Okay, Sochi. First, you should know you don't have to worry about me dying with an extraction. The child grinned. The reason these Jinchuriki die is simply because they do not understand their chakra, do not know how to untangle their souls for their Biju. When the time comes, I'll be fine. Are you certain? His son looked hopeful, but cautious just the same. Positive. Naruto grinned. I'm not leaving you ever again, Sochi. We'll see this plan through. We'll bring your mother back no matter what. This I swear to you. Zetsu smiled again, actually grabbing the boy and hugging him tightly. Thank you. Hey. The boy couldn't help but feel the love his son held for him blossom in his chest. This was the way it was meant to be. This impure world meant nothing if his Sochi and beloved weren't there. Now, Sochi, I'm going to be staying in Konoha for a while. I'm curious about this so-called father of mine. Just as well. Zetsu pulled back, nodding. I'm very busy with the plan. I won't be able to stay here for long, nor visit often. I've had several white Zetsus placed around this village. What they find they'll report to you. He tilted his head then. If I may ask, how long do you think you'll stay here? Depends. Naruto grinned. How long do you think I'll need to teach that traitorous father a harsh lesson in parentage? Uchiha Makoto, matriarch of the Uchiha clan, mother to Itachi and Sasuke, and former Junin of Konoha, found herself frowning at the sight of it. Dirty boys. She scowled inwardly at the dirt-caked shorts, blood-stained pants, and cut-up gloves sitting as pretty as you please in the hamper. If there was one regret she had for her family, it was the serious lack of a daughter, who she knew would have brought a nice boost of female energy to an otherwise testosterone-flooded family life. Dear, have you seen the newspaper? Her husband and clan head through marriage, Uchiha Fugaku, stuck his head in the laundry room with an expectant frown on his handsome face. Your study, where we always put it, dear. Makoto answered, tentatively pinching the clothes and her nose and tossing them into the wash. Ka-san. Sasuke ran in, dodging his father, who wandered off mumbling about newspapers hiding from him. I need more taijutsu training. Some stupid kid beat me in practice at school today. I'll get your uncle Yashira to tutor you, dear. Makoto hummed, adding industrial strength detergent to the wash. The Uchiha secret to keeping clothes fresh while also making them stiffer than an Inazuka in heat, the better to maintain their haughty reputation with. Maybe I'll beat that stupid Uzumaki if I practice really hard. Her son mumbled as he walked away. Ah, Uzumaki, can only be Naruto. Makoto grumped, suddenly not feeling very much in the mood for household chores. The fate of the little boy had hit her where it hurt, of a family torn apart by forces beyond their control, with Kushina nearly dying during childbirth, and follow that up with Minato's stupid decision to disown the boy. Makoto wasn't generally a betting woman, but she'd gladly put the entire Uchiha family fortune on Minato being brutally murdered by Kushina when, if, her red-headed best friend ever recovered from her coma. Mother. Makoto startled, hand against chest as she ripped around in surprise. Itachi. She breathed. You startled me. Her rather stoic son quirked an eyebrow at that. Apologies, I did not realize you were distracted. Ma. Lighten up, Sochi. Makoto playfully winked at him. All work and no play makes Itachi a dull boy. She paused. A really, really dull boy. I see. The not quite a teenager returned neutrally, glancing back down the hall before stepping into the laundry room and shutting the door. It's good I've caught you alone. There is something I need to discuss with you. Makoto raised an eyebrow at that, before shrugging. Okay. Itachi frowned slightly, looking for all the world in deep concentration. The Hokage has ordered me to encourage a relationship between Sasuke and another boy. Whoa. She flailed her arms around. First, Sasuke is 6. 6 Itachi. There is no relationship allowed or condoned for 6-year-olds. She bulled on despite Itachi's stunned look. Second, Sasuke isn't even aware of what means, and chances are he doesn't swing that way to begin with. I'm at a loss. Itachi retorted in that same dull tone. I did not mean to suggest a romantic relationship, but a friendship, or a rivalry. Oh, Makoto blushed pink. I see. Well, forget what I just said. You have no idea how hard I'm trying to. The Uchiha boy mumbled. Ah ha ha. She laughed weakly. Anyway, so who is this boy? And why does the Hokage have to order you to do something so trivial? The Uzumaki boy was not raised well. Itachi confessed. The Hokage believes that without an anchoring factor involved, chances of disloyalty or outright betrayal exceed acceptable levels. Wow. Makoto shook her head. Again, lighten up, Itachi-kun. And as for the Hokage, well, no crap, the boy isn't loyal. Given the way this village treated him, I'm amazed he hasn't run away already. Then you comprehend the gravity of the situation. Itachi nodded seriously. Good. I was afraid you'd decline. I never said I accepted either. Makoto shrugged, humming as she did her work. I do not like that fool barging into my home and ordering one of my children to be friends with someone they don't know, especially not to fix up their own darn mistake. You refuse. Itachi blinked in dumb shock. Wordplay, Itachi. You need to learn wordplay. The elder Uchiha grumped. I never refused either, merely pointed out I haven't accepted, and find the Hokage's attempt to fix his screw-up by using my children reprehensible. Then you. Itachi frowned, trying to make sense of it all. We'll think about it. Makoto decided she'd take what she could get. These little baby steps in breaking Itachi out of his drone routine would work, or heaven help her, she'd butcher Fugaku for ever ordering her son enter the blasted Anbu. I'll think about it. Naruto decided today he'd return home, shut and cover all his windows, and focus all of his attention on the generous donation of chakra Black Zetsu had left him. While no one would be able to tell the difference at a glance, his Sochi was comprised purely from Kaguya's yin chakra, and such chakra was beautiful to his eyes. Given the chakra came from the very source of it all, there was almost nothing that couldn't be attained if one could properly harness and utilize that chakra. And he could. Oh yes, he very well could. Kaguya's chakra would send him forward leaps and bounds in whatever he decided to use it for. It wasn't unlimited, however, and while Zetsu probably wouldn't mind handing him more, he certainly wasn't about to cry for it. He had only just got his Sochi back. The last thing he wanted to do was put a stupid thought in his head that his father was using him for his own gain. Chakra coils first. I am sick to death of these control exercises. The boy grumbled mentally, peeling a bit of the yin chakra from the core and painstakingly working it into his chakra coils, melding it with his chakra in just the right way to remind it how it should be behaving. Seemingly instantly, but really took almost 7 hours, the boy woke from his meditative trance and collapsed back on the floor panting in exhaustion. Dear Kaguya. He felt worse than that time he and his traitorous sons had started fighting over who was Kaheim's favorite. So much pain. Still, worth it. Even now with his altered coils he could practically feel every single mode of chakra making up the whole. Perfect chakra control. PFF'd. This is divine control. Beat that, you overly critical medic bastards. Hey. Naruto startled, rolling backward and hopping to his feet in shocked surprise. White Zetsu smiled toothily. Hey boss man. The silvery blonde allowed himself to relax. Sochi said you'd be around. Indeed we are. Indeed we are. The Zetsu grinned, slinking out of the wall and glancing around curiously. Been keeping an eye on the Hokage. He's been talking with a guy named Jiraiya about your mother. Said she suffers from chakra dissonance. And I have no idea what that means. Naruto shrugged. As either. Zetsu riposted. Only reason we're mentioning it is because Jiraiya believes with a monitored, controlled infusion of Kyuubi's chakra they'd be able to cure her. He frowned. Only they don't know how much. The Hokage seems willing to rip it from you entirely, not caring that you only might survive. I see. The Jinchuriki frowned. Keep an eye on the Hokage. If he makes a move for me, warn me ASAP. In the meantime, send the others to dig up everything you can find on Uzumaki Kushina. Her likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, even the name of her dog if she happened to have one. Sure. The Zetsu shrugged. Why though? She's unconscious and not likely to wake up soon. I'm painting a picture. Naruto grinned, and that picture is called, Leave Minato in Hell, and Kushina seems like a central brush stroke, doesn't she? Fair enough. Aside from that, they've been talking about your loyalty to the village, or lack thereof. The Hokage has ordered someone to convince an Uchiha Sasuke to be your friend, or rival, or whatever humans call that. Really? Naruto frowned, glancing at the roof thoughtfully. Well, let them try. I suppose. Maybe you should fake being his friend. Zetsu suggested, if only to throw the hounds off you and give you more time to screw with the Hokage. Doesn't matter. The boy shrugged. If he's willing to sacrifice me to bring back Kushina, then I've got limited time as it is. Once he gets frustrated or impatient, I'll be hearing his lackeys barging down my door to restrain me for the transfer. He shook his head. No, doesn't matter. Just get me that information on Kushina by morning, then I'll see how deep his bond is with her. Sure thing. Zetsu waved cheerfully, merging with the floor and vanishing. Naruto stared at the plant mons parting for a few moments, frowning thoughtfully. It seems I really don't have much time left. It really is a miracle I woke up when I did. If I hadn't, then Uzumaki Naruto would have been sacrificed on the altar of that fool's obsession. He grimaced. He may not have much time left, but he already had a really good idea on how he could screw that man over. He just needed Zetsu to confirm it. The next day, Makoto promised to think about it, but wasn't about to let her little Sasuke be friends with a potentially unstable element like Naruto without seeing him firsthand. It was a harsh way of thinking, one she had no doubts Kushina would smother her with a pillow for ever doing so, but when it came to her precious children she had long since accepted the fact she'd burn the whole village down if it meant protecting them. Did that make her a good mother? Yes. A lousy villager? Yes, but she didn't care. Ah, Uchiha-sama. A rather boisterous man called to her, wearing his white robe complete with white chef hat. Ichiraku Tsuki was a man she had practically grew up with, even if he was only ever a civilian. One was not friends with Uzumaki Kushina without becoming friends with the very people who brewed the nectar of the gods, as the redhead often put it. Ichiraku-san. Makoto waved cheerfully, idly looking around the ramen shop and failing to find her target. Not here. Looking for someone. The cook prodded gently. I heard rumors little Naruto-chan loved this place. The Uchiha frowned thoughtfully, was hoping to run into him. Naruto ni. Ayame. The darling 11-year-old daughter chirped from her perch on the counter. I haven't seen him in ages. A week. Tsuki corrected with a chuckle, ruffling his daughter's hair. Kids, even a day feels like forever ago to them. Makoto pouted, looking every bit as childish as Ayame right there. Do you know where he lives? Hasagawa Orphanage last I knew. The cook grunted, stirring the brothy noodles simmering over the fire. Heard rumors he's started the academy, which means he's probably been packed into the shinobi apartment complexes down the road. He frowned. If you do see him, tell him to stop by, we miss the little guy. Ah, we'll see. Makoto nodded pleasantly. I was hoping I wouldn't have to barge in his home to see him. She sighed. Give me 2 orders of salt ramen and a miso, Tsuki-san. As much as he generally disliked the white Zetsu, Naruto had to admit the little dolls were good at what they did. The amount of information they were able to find on Uzumaki Kushina was staggering, reports going as far back as her pre-Genin days that detailed her dream of being Hokage, of the isolation she felt as both a foreigner and later as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. There were even notes on her relationship with Namikaze Minato, the 4th Hokage, all of which seemed to have kick-started after a botched kidnapping attempt by Kumo that the Namikaze had rescued her from. She also had a cat, named Whiskers, who apparently drowned in a pot of salt ramen when she was 14. A terrible tragedy, that. Naruto skimmed through most of it. After all, a lot of it were useful observations and suggestions on the girl's mindset, actions taken to subtly influence her to be more loyal to Konoha, but nothing heinous or truly overt stuck out to him. Not like they slapped a seal on her or something trite like that. He mentally grunted, turning his attention to her more recent files, the medical documents concerning her near-death condition, multiple treatments and their inevitable failures, so on and so forth. Apparently the woman had overtaxed herself following the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha, utilizing an Uzumaki seal like her own now shattered one to seal the Kyuubi into him not even an hour after his birth. She fell into a coma holding her crying little baby, only kept from death by Namikaze's quick thinking and Fuinjutsu mastery over space and time, some kind of stasis field that stopped her final demise but could not save her. Space and time. So like Kaheim's ability to breach the dimensional wall and create new dimensions. Naruto grumbled, rather impressed despite himself. While in his original body he had figured out something similar, he knew Kaguya was the true master in this particular field. What to do? A woman is approaching. White Zetsu informed, a lilt of excitement in his tone. Uchiha Makoto, she's been looking for you. Oh, that name sounded familiar. He glanced over Kushina's file, finding the entry mentioned in her younger days. Ah, the girl the third Hokage had ordered to befriend her during her most intense period of social isolation. Similar to the fourth's attempt on you, is it not? Zetsu mumbled needlessly, as if he needed that pointed out. He may have only been physically 6-year-old, but his chakra, and thus his mind and soul, were far more learned than a mere child's. This wasn't even counting the leaps and jumps his mental acuity took when he expanded his awareness via Kaguya's yin chakra. Naruto grunted, stacking the information on Kushina and shuffling it under the bed. I'll handle her. You will monitor the hospital, give me an idea on guards, defenses, potential issues I'll be facing when I make a move on Kushina. Going to kill her? Zetsu blinked, head tilted in obvious curiosity. It's possible. Naruto allowed. He honestly hadn't decided yet, he'd need to wait until he could evaluate the woman himself. Now shoo. The last thing either of us needs is getting spotted together. Zetsu shrugged, sinking into the floor and vanishing. Makoto bit her lip pensively. Finding Naruto's home hadn't been hard, as the closer she got to it the more people were willing to mumble and curse to her about the little monster inhabiting this particular building. In many ways it was like Naruto was reliving Kushina's own terrible childhood. Instead of being called a monster, the redhead had been labeled the foreign strumpet seeking to sully the leaf with her abnormal ways. She had been cross when her father suggested she make friends with the girl, so childishly set in her own mind that she was superior and shouldn't lower herself to deal with such common rabble, but ultimately glad she had reached out like she had. Theirs was a friendship that would have lasted the rest of their lives, still would if Kushina ever recovered. The Uchiha matriarch sighed, idly pushing a tress of hair behind her ear before knocking on the door. She didn't have to wait long, the door creeping open a smidgen as silvery blue eyes gazed out curiously. Yes, he spoke, tone oddly musical and comforting in a way the older woman couldn't comprehend. Ah, apologies Uzumaki-san. Makoto chirped, idly glancing at her bag of sealed ramen bowls. One visited this nice little ramen shop down the way, and the owners asked if I'd be so kind as to check up on their #1 customer. Naruto tilted his head slowly. Those fierce, when did they become so fierce? Eyes drilling holes into her rather flimsy excuse. Should work. Makoto grumped mentally. 6-year-olds aren't going to be so suspicious, at least not enough to see my somewhat obvious fib. I'm fine. He returned softly, glancing at the bag, though I don't remember ever telling them where I lived. Oh, it isn't a big secret, you know. Makoto beamed. After all, you're a bit of a celebrity in this village. A social pariah, you mean? His deadpan was barely concealed. He seemed to consider something, brow furrowed in that cute way only children were capable of, before he opened his door wide. A hungry one. Ah, all right. The Uchiha matriarch was rather impressed she had been able to restrain her wince at the boy's rather accurate, if miserable description of the truth. Well, good thing Tsuki-san sent me with food, nay. Right. He mumbled suspiciously, before tilting his head, would you like to come in, Uchiha-san? I'd love to. Makoto chirruped, feeling relief the boy wasn't outright telling her to go away. Maybe there was hope for him yet. She glanced around the rather bland apartment, taking note of the thin sheen of dust gathering over pretty much everything. His kitchen doubled as a dining room, which expanded into a cramped if bland living room that looked like it hadn't ever seen use. I hope you like salt ramen, it's a favorite of mine. It's fine. Setting the bowls on the table, Makoto watched as the boy slowly ate some of the delicious noodles, yet doing it in such a clinical and rather emotionless way. No wasted movements, no pausing to enjoy the taste, just simple consumption. Makoto leaned on the table, palm to chin as she med, you know, Uzumaki-san, I think my little boy is your age. Sasuke. Naruto grunted, ignorant or ignoring the surprised look on Makoto's face at that. Ah, I didn't realize you knew. You usually pick him up after school. Naruto shrugged, hard not to notice when Sasuke hugs you on the way out. Ah, Makoto frowned lightly. She could only imagine what the boy felt like seeing other children with people or parents waiting for them, while he had none. I didn't think we were making a show of it. You're his mother, he's your son. The silvery blonde returned blandly, he's lucky he has you, and you're lucky you have him. Still, she mumbled softly. I'm sorry if we made you uncomfortable. With what happened to your parents. Parent. Naruto cut her off. That man is no parent, nor would I ever think of him as one, Hokage or not. Now that surprised the Uchiha matriarch. Not many actually knew the fourth was Naruto's father, and those who did were under threat of death if they ever revealed it. That Naruto seemingly knows. I wasn't aware you knew. I'm sorry. Don't be, Uchiha-san. The boy shrugged. Karma has a way of evening the score. He will get what's coming to him in due time, so don't concern yourself with me. He smiled lightly then. Still, thank you for your concern. It's rare to see such beauty in this impure world. Makoto blinked. Beauty in this impure world. What does that mean? Naruto shrugged slowly. Let me answer that by explaining a scenario. Let's say something really bad happens. Your husband is hurt, lying in a coma on death's door but otherwise stable. Your entire family, except your children, are dead. What would you do? The Uchiha woman frowned darkly at that. I don't know. If my children are alive and safe, I'd probably worry over my husband when I could. She shrugged. While I'd be real sad my family were gone, as long as my children were safe I think I'd be content. And that's why you're beautiful. Naruto continued. This impure world is filled with people so willing to throw their precious loved ones into the fire, heedless or uncaring of those hurt in the process, of those who are innocent of their hatred and rage. He grimaced. This world desperately needs peace. Makoto nodded slowly. It does, but peace, it's not easy to obtain. Naruto smiled beatifically. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, Makoto-san. He sighed lightly. The question of peace in this village comes down to what must be sacrificed for it. A country, a village, a family. He paused, eyes narrowing tightly. A child. In a world so willing to sacrifice such things, there can be no peace. This is my truth. This is why we live in an impure world. The Uchiha matriarch made her decision right then and there concerning her Sasuke making friends with Naruto. The child wasn't just improperly raised, he was scarred, tormented, tortured and worst of all, equipped with a mind that could see every fault and failing of the people surrounding him. He didn't need a friend, he needed psychological help. Minato, you idiot. You've destroyed him, your own son. Jiraiya hadn't actually needed time to test his theory, he had already done it long before informing the Hokage of the possibility it could heal Kushina. No, he needed time to face his guilt, to face the very real fact his pupil was willing to put his own child on an altar and possibly sacrifice him just to bring Kushina back from the brink of death. If it worked, if Kushina recovered, well, the lot of them weren't going to have long to live once she found out what happened. If she found out what happened, he wouldn't put it past Minato to fib and flub the truth, make it seem like Naruto had been unstable or some such crap in order to make the redhead see reason. Ever think the world would be better off without us? Tsunade murmured softly, hazel eyes staring deep into her saucer of as of yet untouched rice wine. She had been pulled back and forced to stay in Konoha since the Kyuubi attack. Minato would accept nothing but the best when it came to his wife. I don't know about you. Jiraiya grinned weakly. This world would be a dull place without your knockers to liven things up. A bit of steel entered her hazel eyes. You are not going to distract me with that again. Was worth a shot. The toad Sanin grunted mentally. Fine. This world could only be better without me or my failed teachings. He grimaced. Just seeing Minato like this, almost want to find a way back in time so I can slap myself and stop from making him my apprentice. It's just like Sensei said. The slug Sanin HM Med, our greatest flaws often show in the next generation. PFF'd. Jiraiya snorted. He was describing Orochimaru there, and you know it. Kind of an ironic comparison with you and Minato, EH. Tsunade shrugged, not even caring at the way her teammate winced at that. Jiraiya was silent for a time, eyes drifting to the table in thought. When he spoke his tone was dead, so terribly lifeless yet simmering with an ember of hope. I have to have faith that when it comes down to it Minato will make the right decision, the best decision for Konoha. How patriotic. Tsunade growled. When this is all done, if that child dies just to bring Kushina back, you'll end up just like me. She sneered angrily then, hiding from Konoha because every time you come here, every time you see a child you'll see Naruto in them like I see Nawaki. When you see a couple walking the streets you'll imagine them as Minato and Kushina, but be unable to ignore the dead little boy that follows in their wake. Is that what you see? I see nothing but regret. Tsunade snapped back, and not a day goes by where I don't wish to go back, to strangle Sensei for giving Nawaki that foolish mission, or screwing up the orders that led to Dan being outnumbered and overwhelmed. She gripped her saucer of sake tightly. I see Konoha, the worthless village who chews up and spits out the brightest of us, leaving only shadowy wretches left to live on when those worthy of life and love meet their bitter ends. Jiraiya grunted, not daring to meet the woman's eyes. I take it that means you refuse to perform the procedure. Tsunade froze, her scowl deepening. You can tell that blonde-haired sucker I'd rather face execution. She downed her sake, slamming it down and shattering the saucer. He has more than enough idiotic loyal fools who can do it. I want no part of it. But you're the best. The toad Sanin pushed. If something were to happen, if both Kushina and Naruto could live if you had been there to save them. Tsunade was silent for a time, lost in thoughts with unfocused eyes. Jiraiya didn't push, merely waited for the woman to make her choice. A good 5 minutes of silence passed before she spoke. No. No. Jiraiya grimaced. He honestly hadn't been expecting that. Kushina would rather die than risk her son, should have died before it reached this point. Tsunade murmured, and Naruto is better off dying than living in this shitty village. Even if I could somehow save both, somehow heal Kushina and keep the boy from dying, Konoha. Minato. Neither of them deserve the effort. So that's it. The man scowled. You'd let 2 innocent people die when you could save them. Why not? Tsunade snapped back. Minato, the great and wonderful Yondaime Hokage, is willing to let his son die to save the life of a woman he loves and desperately wants back. She clenched her fist angrily, and we both know that love he's so desperate for will wither and die the moment Kushina discovers the truth. If she discovers the truth. Jiraiya snapped back. Are you really going to lie to her? The blonde frowned. Let her live a lie just to protect that wretched Mon's feelings. If Konoha. Tsunade roared, slamming her fist and crushing the table between them. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Konoha doesn't care for its people, only for its goddamn selfish survival. Let this pitiful dream die the failure it was always meant to be. Jiraiya froze, dumbstruck by the sheer vehemence in her words. The slug Sanin glared for a moment, then turned and walked away, anger rolling off her enough to suffocate anyone unfortunate enough to pass by. No. Itachi paused in his weapon sharpening, glancing up at his mother. Pardon. No. Makoto reiterated, glaring through the window at the Hokage tower in the distance. I do not want Sasuke anywhere near that boy. I will not allow that fool's screw-up to bleed over into my child. The 11-year-old frowned, setting his tanto aside. You've spoken to Naruto. Had to see it with my own eyes. His mother gritted her teeth, trembling. That boy wasn't just raised wrong, he's broken. He sees nothing but hatred, but worthless sacrifices for people who don't deserve the effort. An impure world full of wretched lies, and even more wretched people. An impure world. Itachi returned neutrally. Mother, I don't understand. You will one day. The Uchiha matriarch scowled. One day when you're asked to give up your family, your child, your very reason for existing all to protect a notion, ideal, or a worthless scum like the Hokage. She finished bitterly, hatefully. If that fool is so willing to sacrifice his own son to this world of hatred, let him. I will protect my family, protect my children until the day I die. His son, Itachi murmured softly, is Naruto the Hokage's son? By blood. Makoto shrugged. Yes. By any other definition. No. She turned away. One day Sochi, that man will regret the monster he twisted his son into. Then left. Itachi stayed there for a long time, lost in thoughts of duty, of peace, and the wretched impure world they lived in. 2 weeks later. It works then. Minato raised an eyebrow, carefully hiding the sudden anxiousness, the desperate hope burning in his chest while ruthlessly surpassing the wave of guilt hiding just behind it. Jiraiya nodded slowly. As we discussed, it will work, but just how much of the Kyuubi chakra is needed is up in the air. He turned towards the man with a blank, hard stare. Chances are high that it will require everything. HN. The Hokage grunted, drumming his fingers along the desk. Very well. Have Tsunade. She refuses. Jiraiya interjected blankly. She made it quite clear she'd gladly face execution then assist in this procedure. Dr. Yakushi, not quite as skilled but the best we have after Tsunade, has already agreed to do it. I see. Minato grunted, waving his hand. 2 Anbu appeared, bowed in supplication, arrest Tsunade for treason, desertion of duty, and insubordination. His subordinates nodded, vanishing in a swirl of leaves. You are really serious about this? His sensei said through gritted teeth. If my shinobi do not follow orders, then they are traitors, and will be dealt with as such. The Yondamin grunted, inform Yakushi we'll perform the procedure tonight, then find that boy and get him to the hospital. Jiraiya grunted, stiffly removing himself from the Hokage's presence. Minato stared blankly ahead, frowning ever so slightly. Soon this will all be over, and then I'll apologize to her. Naruto sat ever so still in a lotus position, silvery blonde hair dancing on an invisible wind as he levitated off the ground, his mastery of chakra capable of defying gravity with but a thought. He was at peace, he was serene, and most importantly, the Hokage is making his move. White Zetsu stuck his head out of the wall, a rather sadistic grin on his features. He's having the slug Sanin arrested for treason, since she refuses to perform the procedure, and Jiraiya will be en route to collect you shortly. He was ready. Tsunade felt the Anbu coming a mile away. Her only irritation at their revolting presence was the fact it had taken a whole 2 weeks since she set the bait for that fool of a Hokage to take a nibble. Tsunade-sama. The dog-faced Anbu appeared in a twirl of leaves to her right, a Baku-masked Anbu to her left, both eyeing the park bench she lounged on, mindful of the civilians nearby. That too was to plan, as it stalled her would-be arresters from immediately attempting to subdue her. Hokage-sama has ordered your arrest under grounds of treason, desertion of duties, and insubordination. Please, come quietly. Okay. The blonde Sanin shrugged as she stood up, raising her arms non-threateningly. Baku pulled restraints from his belt line and moved to slap them on her. She waited for a brief second, keeping her emotions calm and clear until the moment to strike came. 1 second she was calmly letting them arrest her, the next she moved in lightning succession, gripping their Anbu masks and fluttering her chakra precisely. A soft whoosh hit her ears as the porcelain masks detached from their owners. Inu acted first, jerking back in surprise, but still just a tad bit too slow to dodge her kick to the gut, the force sending him flying like a human torpedo across the park, through the outer wall, across the street into and through a tailor's shop, to hit the brick wall of the next building and cratering. Baku got a headbutt that sent the Anbu hop-scotching across the ground, as if he was a particularly aerodynamic stone being skipped along the surface of water, face planting in a particularly sturdy oak tree that cracked in two from the force of the impact. Tsunade was gone in a swirl of leaves before either Anbu had finished their impromptu flight, their Anbu masks firmly in hand, or more importantly, the security seals inside the masks that neither Anbu had been able to remove during the surprise attack. If I'm going down, the slug Sanin scowled, I'm taking that son of a bitch with me. Jiraiya stared up blankly, his mind a storm of depression and self-loathing at what he was about to do, at what his actions and failures were about to culminate in, the death of an innocent boy. His windows were closed, curtains drawn, and nothing seemed particularly out of place at Naruto's apartment complex. Yet, There was this feeling of dread laced with shame, like the world itself knew the atrocity he was about to commit and was warning him not to do this. Naruto. I am sorry. The Toad Sanin grimaced, images of his only student smiling in his head, a smile he hadn't worn since the day Kyuubi attacked and Kushina fell into her near-death state. Minato was the son he never had, the child he firmly believed would bring peace to this war-torn land at any cost. He rationalized. It may hurt, he may feel like utter rot for it, but if his actions could ultimately help Minato bring about that peace, then the life of an innocent, of a child, was a small price to pay. Mind made up, Jiraiya formed the Ox seal and activated the seal array within the apartment. He didn't feel the subtle flare of chakra from the technique activating, but didn't let that bother him. He had made that seal to be as unobtrusive as possible, so no one would ever notice if it was put to use. Leaping up the balcony, he smashed the lock and pushed his way into the apartment. Empty. Jiraiya frowned as he moved through the little home, giving it a cursory inspection before letting out a tired sigh. Not here, but the Anbu said he went in and hadn't come out yet. Where can he be? He moved back towards the balcony door before pausing, eyes catching sight of a vanilla folder spread open across the bed. Tentatively moving closer, the older man looked down with a frown. There was a single picture attached to a piece of paper, the picture holding an angled photo of Kushina held in her near-death state, with words boldly written beneath. Receive the gift of hell, Father. Jiraiya read, an oppressive feeling of dread settling on his shoulders. He knew. The kid knew who his father was, knew who his mother was. Knew the whole thing, but for how long? Who told him? More importantly, what did he intend to do about it? He tried to calm himself, which wasn't that hard honestly. Naruto may know the truth, but he was still a 6-year-old boy. They really didn't have that much to worry about unless he brought Kyuubi out to play. A subtle screech, a hum of power, and a blazing flash of light burned at his peripheral. He turned, staring out from the balcony where on the far side of Konoha a red shimmering field of chakra shot skyward, closing in on itself and locking itself in place. Shishienjin. Moments earlier, Tsunade slid to a halt, breathing a little harshly from her rapid escape. She didn't have much time. She knew, Inu, Kakashi, wouldn't be put down long, and she sure as hell knew she wouldn't be escaping Minato's attention for very long. She had to get the Shishienjin seal barrier activated before Konoha could unleash hell on her. She would not be going to the underworld without her target dying first. The residence wasn't terribly large, a 2-story home with maybe 4 bedrooms, all largely empty now that her target's son had left Konoha, with his daughter, her husband, and grandson living elsewhere in the village. He was alone, just as he had always been since the night Kyuubi broke free and tore this pitiful village to shreds. Tsunade ran towards the front, fluttering her chakra into the masks continuously to keep them from going dormant and taking the seal authorizations with them. At the front of the walkway were 2 stone lanterns which she took a step by, before placing the masks on the top and channeling her chakra into said masks and threw them into the stone lanterns. Violet fire erupted in the stone lanterns, and though she couldn't see it, she already knew the corresponding lanterns surrounding the home were igniting as the barrier seal activated. She smiled grimly as the violet walls began ascending to close off the home. Glancing towards the house, the bitter woman began making her way, offhandedly smashing the Anbu masks into shards as she went on the hunt for the son of a bitch who ruined her life. Her target ran out of the house in mild confusion. Tsunade. What's happening? Is the village under attack? Tsunade shook her head. No sensei. She bit out pleasantly before blindsiding the unprepared third Hokage with a vicious left hook. But you are. Naruto fell to his knees, shivering at the disgusting feeling at having a Zetsu clone swallow one whole and spit them out. I'm going to need a bath after that. White Zetsu shrugged, single eye glancing around the room in thought. You wanted to get in undetected, right? Easiest way was to bring you with me through the earth. The silvery blonde grunted. I'm not saying it's ineffective, just that you are a disgusting thing to be in contact with in such a manner. The boy glanced around the room thoughtfully. The room had no windows, but was lined with different medical equipment, all of which were set up around a weird apparatus that took readings from the woman kept in a stasis field within the center. Naruto already knew they rarely brought Kushina out of Minato's Fuinjutsu seal, as every second she was exposed to real time she'd march ever closer to the death she was now only barely hovering above. Well, There she is. White Zetsu murmured, turning his head to the left and staring at the wall suddenly. Something's happening in the village. Oh. The transmigrant moved closer to the woman, eyeing her chakra thoughtfully. Tsunade of the Sanin. She's attacking the third Hokage. Zetsu spoke softly, more to himself than anything else. Curious. That's. Naruto frowned, unbelieving of his luck. Such a brazen attack would distract Konoha, Jiraiya, and most importantly that wretched Hokage. Convenient. Why would she attack her old sensei though? Zetsu shrugged. I have a Zetsu monitoring the situation, he'll keep me updated via our link and I'll let you know as soon as he knows. Okay. The silvery blonde shrugged, not particularly caring. He turned his attention to the red head, eyeing her chakra thoughtfully. They said she suffered from chakra dissonance, whatever the hell that means, but, no, he med thoughtfully. Her chakra, it's not out of balance, it's ripped apart. He laughed then, brightly and loudly, oh, this is terrible. Minato, you fool. Everything you've done, everything you hoped for in sacrificing me for this woman was doomed to failure. Oh. Zetsu tilted his head curiously. She's already as good as dead, Zetsu. Naruto shook his head. Her chakra, her soul, it's torn apart. He waved his hand towards the woman. Imagine her soul as a picture-perfect representation of what you see here. Now, imagine if her insides were ripped out, if her legs and arms were severed, that is all that remains of her soul. Putting the Kyuubi into her wouldn't work, it would be like trying to plug a hole in the universe with cotton swabs. Oh. Zetsu shrugged, looking for all the world like he didn't get it. So, guess you're just going to kill her then. Nope. Naruto chuckled, placing his hand on the invisible stasis field around her body. Well, maybe. I dunno. I really want to see what put her in this condition before I make up my mind. The plant-like being frowned. I riveted on the boy as he began consuming the chakra, empowering the seals that kept the woman in stasis. Do we have time for that? Probably not. Naruto admitted as he finished draining Minato's chakra from the seal. All at once Kushina began breathing, her chakra bleeding out as her soul continued to die. Placing his hand on her chest, the silvery-haired boy allowed his own chakra to enter her body, keeping the soul of the woman surrounded so no more would bleed out. He wasn't going to have her die on him until he got what he wanted. Naruto put his free hand on her forehead, closing his eyes as he began concentrating. A memory of the past. Kushina hugged her little boy, tears leaking from her eyes as she desperately tried to show him her love. I'm sorry. I won't be able to hold you, to kiss you, to comfort you when you fall or don't understand what's happening. She was dying. She knew that the moment that masked man had ripped Kyuubi from her. It wasn't a matter of if, but a matter of when. Minato may not know the cost of forcibly removing a biju from its container, but she did. Mito made it very clear the day she put Kyuubi into her. Kyuubi. The village. The redhead winced. She failed, couldn't keep the beast contained, and now her home was going to pay the price. She needed to do something, needed to get that beast resealed, if not in her then in someone. As long as Kyuubi was free, Konoha would burn and her little Naruto would be in danger. Minato appeared in a flash, a grimace on his handsome face. Kushina. What's happening? She asked miserably. The masked man retreated. I've forced Kyuubi out of Konoha, but it won't be long before it attacks again. He glanced knowingly at the baby in her arms. We need to seal it. But in what? In who? Kushina shuddered, gripping her mewling son tightly. Naruto. No. She screeched. No, absolutely not Minato. He's our son. Who else? The fourth Hokage scowled. Can we reseal it in you? She knew the answer to that question, and the answer was no. Yes, she could take the beast into herself, but she was already a dead woman, she simply hadn't kicked the bucket yet. The village would get a few years of peace until the Kyuubi reformed at least, which would spare her child the misery of being a Jinchuriki, but then there would be nothing to stop it from heading right back here and beginning this nightmare all over again. Don't want him to suffer like I have. Minato grunted, picking up his wife and child. Shinobi endure. Before vanishing in a yellow flash. The Kyuubi howled, trapped within her barrier of chains, kept still as she struggled to stay conscious despite her rapidly diminishing chakra. Minato. I won't be able to hold this for long. She shot him a sharp glance. How are you planning to seal it? Minato glared at the beast, face set in stone. Shiki Fujin. I'm going to summon the Shinigami. What? Kushina froze. No, she whispered in horror. That'll kill you, Minato. If you die, then our son, Naruto, will have no one left. He'll have you. Her foolish husband riposted. No. She gasped as he began forming hand seals. No. She willed a chain into existence so fast Minato didn't even have time to blink as it smashed into his hands, breaking some fingers. Minato stared at her in shocked horror. Kushina, you're a fool, Databane. The fiery redhead snarled, slamming the end of her chain against his head and knocking the man for a loop. She ignored her barely conscious husband moaning in misery as she dragged herself forward to her precious baby. Naruto, I love you, she whispered, taking blood from her lips and painstakingly inscribing the seal Mito herself had put on her so long ago. Baby, I need you to be strong for me, okay? Take care of Minato-kun. He's an idiot, and sometimes forget what's important, but he's your father and he loves you, she babbled as she finished the seal. I'm sorry, Kushina sobbed, channeling her chakra and completing the seal. Don't ever forget that I love you, Databane. A return from memory. Naruto opened his eyes. So, Zetsu prodded. She is a true beauty in this impure world. He breathed softly. I can't let her die. Zetsu shrugged. Then don't. Still have some of mommy's chakra, right? Shut up. Naruto snapped. I know what I need to do. He glared at the white annoying monster even as he began filtering the last of Kaguya's yin chakra into the slumbering red head. What's happening with Tsunade? Oh, you'll love this. Sarutobi dodged left in a roll, hopping to his feet and retreating rapidly while holding his broken and quite useless right arm. Tsunade. Why? Why betray Konoha? Why betray me? Tsunade hadn't gotten off scot-free in their battle. Old and decrepit Sarutobi maybe, he was a master of ninjutsu, and even with only one functioning arm he was anything but the helpless old fool many saw him as. Yet even still he knew it wouldn't be enough. The burns across the left side of her body were rapidly healing, the hole in her right leg closing and mending as she utilized her Sozo Seisei, her creation rebirth. Why? The woman snarled, heedless of the gathering of shinobi watching their battle helplessly beyond the barrier. She could see Jiraiya arguing with Kakashi and Minato, but spared them no more attention than that. This barrier would last long enough to achieve her vengeance, and that was all that mattered. You old fool. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think me a naive idiot who wouldn't see the truth? What the hell are you talking about? Nawaki. She spat, fresh genin, literally just graduated and you shoved him on a team and threw him out into the field. Orochimaru wrote an official complaint, you know. Official complaint. Hiruzen paused, frowning. Oh yeah. She cracked her knuckles menacingly. He told you he objected, that fresh genin without even passing a follow-up exam should never set foot outside the village. That you were throwing genin into the meat grinder knowing they wouldn't survive. We were at war. The third snapped. Oh how funny then, that immediately after Nawaki died no other teams were sent out without proper training. Tsunade spat. Even before Nawaki the village hadn't fielded a single genin cell without at least some follow-up training, and even then they'd be used to cover safer assignments so the more experienced genin could be pushed closer to the fighting. Tsunade grinned sinisterly. All this, maybe I could have accepted it, maybe I could have come to peace with it, but then you had Dan killed. Hiruzen bolted to the right as Tsunade leapt, bringing her foot down and cratering his front lawn. Dust kicked up by the attack blinded him momentarily, but he was nothing if not resourceful. Flipping through one-handed seals, he launched a fireball into the crater, following up with a futon jutsu that combined and created a twisted inferno of hot death. Fool. Tsunade hissed to his side as she gripped his left arm, twisting and snapping the bone like it was nothing more than a twig of dry rotted wood. You think I wouldn't know your counters? Your oh so precious collaboration jutsu. I've made it my goal in life to avenge Nawaki and Dan. She snarled as she decked him, his wrinkled old body flipping from the force of the blow and digging a trench through the earth where he landed. Tsunade. Please. Sarutobi begged as the princess of battle marched towards him, the very vision of death incarnate. The slug Sanin scowled. Mercy. You want mercy. She reached down and grabbed him by his tattered robes, and what will you give me if I show you mercy? Anything. Everything. The old man cried. He didn't want to die. He still had too much regret, too many mistakes left ignored. He couldn't face Bawako like this, like the sniveling wretch he knew he was. I want my brother and lover back, you son of a bitch. Tsunade reared back and slammed her fist directly on top his head, popping it like a ripe tomato all over the ground. She stared at the headless corpse of her former teacher, at the man she had at one point considered a surrogate father. Hey! Haha! Haha hey hey! She giggled madly, letting her hazel brown eyes drift wildly over towards the gathered shinobi staring in horror from beyond the barrier. She grinned nastily, pointing at Jiraiya and Minato, both of whom here staring at her with hateful scowls. You think you're better than me, Tsunade snapped, laughing cruelly, at least I never abandoned my family to follow a foolish dream. She stumbled towards them, light-headed at all the chakra used and emotionally unstable from it all. Nothing to say. Minato scowled darkly. You will die for this, traitor. Oh, I'm very well aware of that. The blonde Sanin shrugged. At least when I die I'll be able to face my loved ones with my head held high. You. She sneered. You love only yourself. I hope Kushina dies in the procedure, so at least she won't see what her oh so wonderful husband has become. So she won't ever know the suffering you put your son through, or that you are going to happily murder him just to bring her back. She turned away and stumbled back to Sarutobi's headless corpse before falling to her knees. I hope you die alone and forgotten like the pieces of shit you are. Naruto blinked. Well, that's certainly interesting. Didn't know the third was such a right bastard. Zetsu grunted, finishing his retelling. Right now they're just sitting there. Shouldn't be too long before the barrier comes down. I expect Tsunade will be arrested and publicly tried and executed. A pity. The silvery blonde grunted, eyes on Kushina. Or perhaps not. Zetsu raised an eyebrow. Something on your mind. Kushina will live. The silvery blonde grunted. Kaguya's yin chakra is depleted, but it was enough to restore her soul. You're going to let her revive. Zetsu grunted. Isn't that, I dunno, giving the Hokage what he wants? Sure, I guess. Naruto sneered, putting his hand on Kushina's head. But he won't be able to deny it, he won't be able to hide it, and he most certainly won't be able to conceal the truth from her. He closed his eyes, chakra bubbling around him momentarily before sliding from his hand and into her head. He spared a moment to gaze at her sleeping, almost angelic features, admiring the now intermittent strands of silver in her hair, a sign of his and Kaguya's chakra being a part of her. I've given her the memories of my tormented childhood. Seems cruel. Zetsu pointed out as he stepped away from her. Oh, well, you called her, what, a beauty in this impure world. And what are you getting at, Zetsu? You're saving her just so she can wake up, see what a right bastard her husband is, and find out that the son she loves, you, has skipped town and left her to wallow in misery. Naruto frowned, turning around and channeling more chakra into his hand before pressing it into Kushina's forehead. There. And what did you do? Planted a seed. The transmigrant shrugged. Now enough of this, let us leave this wretched village and find some peace. Zetsu grunted. Want me to do anything about Tsunade? She's a powerful kunoichi, has no love for Konoha or your father. We could certainly use someone like that in our plans to revive mother. Naruto frowned thoughtfully. He honestly didn't know much about the woman, but if Zetsu thought so highly of her, enough so that he'd actually mentioned she could be of help in his Sochi's plan to bring back Kaguya, then it was something to consider. Can we extract her? Me? No. Zetsu shrugged. I doubt she'd come willingly with me. You. She seems as mad at your father for wanting to sacrifice you as you are for him abandoning you. Naruto paused to consider that. He really didn't want to reveal himself so soon, but he supposed it really didn't matter. He was going into hiding after this. His Sochi had already provided him several locations where he could hide and lay low while he finished his physical conditioning and training, the kind of stuff he couldn't do with Kaguya's yin chakra, and when he did re-emerge he'd be much stronger than he was now, so it wouldn't matter in the slightest. Alright, I agree. Let's go save a Sasanin. Minato was furious, absolutely livid at his and his shinobi's complete failure to stop one nearly over-the-hill woman from killing Sarutobi, from wishing his beloved Kushina dead, from defending that little boy that had been nothing by heartache for him from the moment he was born. Should have let that masked man kill him. He scowled internally, turning his hard glare on his sensei. Why hasn't this barrier been brought down yet? This barrier was designed and put in place years ago. Jiraiya snapped back, The entire seal array is buried in the stone lanterns which, as you no doubt see, are inside the barrier and protected by a second barrier to prevent damage from internal sources. We can't break this jutsu, we have to wait until it runs out of power. And how long is that going to take? Jiraiya shrugged. Does it matter anymore? Kakashi grimaced as he listened, but said nothing. The guilt at failing so badly was bubbling within him, threatening to smother him whole. It was his mask, his and Hayate's, the now very dead Hayate, that had allowed Tsunade to activate the dormant seal arrays and trap the third Hokage, that had led to the very death of the man who had nurtured and protected Konoha through 2 shinobi wars. When this barrier drops, I want her captured. Minato snapped. We're going to put her on trial, publicly tear her apart and then execute her as the traitor she is. Oh father. An amused laugh, tone musical yet carrying with it a dangerous edge. If ever there was a traitor, it's you. Minato stared as that boy stood inside the barrier. How did he get inside? He emerged from the ground. Kakashi stared in shocked awe. Impossible. The Toad Sannin breathed. This barrier, you can't use Earth Jutsu to get around it. Naruto gazed at them, eyes cinched shut with a happy smile on his lips. He turned to Tsunade. Hey. Naruto. Tsunade whispered, gazing blankly at the boy. You shouldn't be here, kid. That fool father of yours is going to kill you, sacrifice you to save his wife. She reached over slowly, putting one hand gently on his shoulder. Please, don't die. Don't let Konoha take another innocent life. Warms the heart hearing you say that, Ba-chan. The cheeky Uzumaki grinned. Tsunade was far too resigned to her fate to even be angry at such an annoying nickname. But I wouldn't worry. Daddy dearest is about to have a really, really bad day. Minato frowned, throwing Jiraiya a glance, his sensei shrugging in confusion. What do you mean, kid? Tsunade frowned. We can sit here and talk about it until the barrier falls, or you can let me save you and take you away from this wretched village and then we can talk about it. Naruto glanced at the barrier thoughtfully. Have maybe a minute, 2 tops before that barrier comes down by the way. Save me. The slug Sannin blinked slowly, mouth dry at the thought of it. She didn't want to be saved. She had resigned herself to this fate, made sure her only remaining loved one, Shizune, was safe and far away before starting this. Tsunade was tired. Tired of this world. Tired of losing everything precious to her, and tired of serving a village so in love with itself it can't see the lives they were ruining. There's nothing left. I'm just an empty shell of regret. The silvery blonde nodded slowly, pinching her chin and gently kissing her forehead. You may think you're an empty shell, but to me you're a true beauty in this impure world. Because of that I love you, and always will. He tilted his head slightly, looking into her hazel brown eyes edged with surprise. Come with me Tsunade. Help me put an end to this wretched cycle of hatred, help me bring back the true peace this world was denied. I don't understand. Tsunade returned softly, fingers trailing the warmth left on her forehead by his kiss, stunned by such a loving gesture from a boy she had never truly met before today. I'll explain when we're safe. Naruto sighed, glancing at the barrier. 30 seconds until the barrier comes down. The surrounding shinobi tensed at that, gripping weapons in preparation. Tsunade just nodded, closing her eyes tiredly. This may feel a little weird, but bear with it. Naruto grunted. Zetsu, get her out of here. Right boss. A white thing emerged from the ground, his arm pressing into the slug Sannin's side before spreading across her form like a vicious oil. Tsunade gasped in surprise as the white plant man consumed her form before pulling her underground and away. Naruto smiled, another of the white Zetsu poking its head up beneath his feet. So, father. He chuckled as Zetsu began to cover him and pull him underground. I do so hope you enjoy the painting I left behind for you. He laughed. I know Kushina won't. Minato glared as that boy vanished beneath the ground mere seconds before the barrier collapsed. Kakashi, can you track them? Kakashi frowned, examining the area. No. Once they disappeared underground they left no scent to be tracked. God damn it. The Hokage scowled. What the hell happened? What was that? Zetsu. What was that thing? Where did he go? What the hell did he mean about Kushina? Jiraiya paled, remembering the picture and message Naruto left behind in his apartment. But what can he do? Kushina's locked up tight in a Fuinjutsu time barrier. Kid couldn't pop that. No one but Minato has the key for that barrier. He shook the thought off and ignored the sudden feeling that everything they had been working for had just been irrevocably shattered. A sharp breath, a deep gasp of shock and surprise. Kushina opened her silvery violet eyes and stared at the roof blankly. I'm alive, she moaned mentally, looking around dumbfounded. How was she alive? How did they save her? Where was Minato? Where was Naruto? She screamed as the torment assaulted her brain. Lonely, lonely, oh so lonely, pain, 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 why did they always hurt me? Isolation, please someone talk to me. As her son's memories played out in her brain, she never noticed the doctors rushing into her room, never saw the look of shock and amazement in their eyes. Yet she most certainly felt the tears of anguish streaking down her cheeks as she viewed the torment and pain her husband had caused their only child. Minato! You bastard! Minato ran as soon as he heard, flashing to the hospital before zipping to the private wing quarters that had held his wife in her near-death state since that boy was born and the Kyuubi ripped free of her. So focused, so desperately needing to get to her, he never really stopped to ask himself how she was healed. How did they bypass his stasis fuinjutsu? How did they heal her if not with Kyuubi? So many questions that he should have stopped and considered before he barged into her room, but he didn't, so he was quite surprised to find a pair of silvery violet eyes glaring hatefully at him. Kushina Minato. The redhead breathed sweetly, her tiny fists gripping the sheets of her bed tightly. Maybe you can tell me what happened. These wussy Anbu. She shot a glare towards Karasu and Tenzo, both remaining stoically at attention even if they were terrified on the inside, wouldn't tell me a thing. Minato could read the situation as well as anyone. Kushina may be smiling pleasantly at him, a sight that made his cold heart flutter with something besides pain, but her eyes burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns, and what it burned with was fury, a cold fury he hadn't seen in a long time. Still, he managed a happy smile. Well, Kushina, it's a bit of a long story, but here's what happened. After the Kyuubi attack. Wait, Minato. His wife interrupted calmly. I'd really like it if Naruto were here before we begin. She grinned cheerfully. I do so want to hold our wonderful, beautiful, innocent child in my arms. Did someone tell her? Minato glanced questioningly at the Anbu. Both just quickly shook their heads in the negative. Ah, well, that boy is. That boy. Kushina cut in with a dangerous edge to her tone. Why, Minato-kun, why would you ever refer to the child we swore to love and cherish for all of our lives as something so impersonal? She tilted her head slightly, her smile twisting into a cross between a cheerful grin and a manic sneer. It's not that I mean I know we promised that, but. The Hokage stuttered. Dear God, he had forgotten how horrifying his wife could be at times. Quote. I'm afraid he's out of the village right now. And I. You didn't lie to me, did you? The former Jinchuriki frowned. When you told me you would watch out for him, protect him till the day you died, that wasn't a lie, was it, Minato-kun? Minato suddenly remembered what Naruto had said earlier. Yes. I guess this is what he meant about me having a very, very, very bad day. A large part of him wanted to strangle the brat, but there was another part of him that couldn't help but feel proud at how much of a rotten bastard that boy could be. If he was this evil at 6, hells only knows what kind of monster he'd be when he got older. The Namikaze man grimaced. Did not live up to my promise. He waved his arm frantically. Wait, let me expla. Only to get interrupted as chains erupted from the woman, sweeping across the room and slamming Karasu and Tenzo out the door, while Minato found himself asphyxiating with a gold chain tied around his neck, with another chain pinning his arm, and the last chain pinning his legs. You abandoned him. You let him be tortured. You never let him know the love that neither of us got growing up. Kushina roared, eyes burning with fury as Minato struggled to get out of the chains. He was about to Hirishin when the chains suddenly retracted, dropping him to the floor like so much garbage. Minato struggled to catch his breath, glancing up at his wife and wincing at the tears running rivers down her pale cheeks. Get out of my sight, trash. I never want to see your worthless face again. Calm down, Kushina. Let me express. Out. She screamed, chains coming out threateningly, the very tips of the chakra weapons narrowed down into rather sinister-looking spears. Minato hesitated for only a moment, then vanished in a flash. What the happened? Jiraiya winced as his student raged at the hospital staff. Anbu, and pretty much everyone who happened to be in earshot. The Hokage wasn't just angry, he was crying openly after being so thoroughly rejected by the person he had dedicated everything to saving, regardless of who or what he had to sacrifice. Hokage-sama. Dr. Yakushi valiantly stepped forward. Sir, video recordings. That boy in some one-arm thing got access to her. I don't know what he did exactly, but he seemed to absorb the fuinjutsu and channel an obscene amount of chakra into her. He grimaced as the Hokage leveled a hellish glare at him. The instruments recorded extreme activity over her entire chakra network that stabilized her chakra dissonance, but I can tell you, with 100% certainty that you do not need to fear contamination from the Kyuubi. No Biju chakra was detected. Wonderful. Minato snarled, but that doesn't tell me who the hell told her what had been happening since she was in stasis. Who spoke to her? Who betrayed me? The gathered personnel all looked at each other accusingly, but no one stepped up. Hokage-sama. Karasu stepped forward. Tenzo-senpai and I arrived 11 minutes, 12 seconds after the staff discovered Kushina-sama's revival. No one from that period onward explained anything of her situation or subsequent events after she was placed into stasis following the Kyuubi attack. Minato scowled, fists clenched as he glared hard. Inoichi. Bring me Inoichi. Minato. Jiraiya stepped in. Don't you think that's going too far? She knows. She was going to find out sooner or later, right? She was going to learn what I wanted her to learn when I wanted her to learn it. The Hokage snapped right back. That boy did this, I know it. He turned her against me just to spite. You did it to yourself, you brat. The Toad Sanin snapped right back. No one ever told you to abandon your own son. Everyone, every goddamn person who knew told you it was a bad idea, but you went ahead and did it anyway. Be silent. The Yondamin bit out. Jiraiya just glared as he turned and walked out. Yamanaka Inoichi stared blankly. You want me to do what, Hokage-sama? Remove her memories. Minato snapped. I don't want her to remember anything about that boy. I don't want her to remember anything about ever being pregnant. Remove the whole damn thing. Construct some believable memories that will convince her she lost the Kyuubi and it was sealed in a pot. Anything, I don't care. Sir, I have to make this perfectly clear. What you're asking me to do against Kushina-sama is not done lightly, nor without potential consequences to the victim. Inoichi really didn't like this, really didn't like this. He wasn't a prophet or could foretell the future, but he just knew this was going to blow up in his face. You have your orders. The Hokage bit out. She's been sedated. Do your duty, Yamanaka. Inoichi grunted as he turned and moved to the room holding the woman. Today was just getting worse and worse. Bad enough Tsunade had turned traitor and murdered the third Hokage. Bad enough the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had given the village the finger. But now even the village leader had broken down at being so heavily rejected by the woman he loved after she magically discovered he was a cold-hearted, child-abandoning, piece of shit liar. Any one of these events would give cause for other nations to consider pressing their luck, but all three at once. The Yamanaka wouldn't be surprised if certain foreign powers were mobilizing to strike deep into Hai no Kuni as he walked down the hall. He sighed, stepping into the room. Kushina slumbered peacefully. Inoichi could only imagine what kind of juiced up they had slipped her to knock her out. Grabbing a chair and moving up to the woman, he sat down and sighed tiredly. He didn't want to do this, saw no reason to deny the woman the memory of her son, and he knew word of Kushina's revival was already spreading far and wide. The other clan heads would hear about this, and Minato, Hokage or not, will be buried for using obscene force to cover up his own mistakes. Yet, that wasn't the here nor now. He was given his orders and he had to fulfill them or face the consequences. I'm sorry. He mumbled as he placed his hand on her head and began focusing. His reality began drifting away as he breached her mind, a large expansive field spreading open before him as he gained access to her memories. He managed a proverbial step before everything went horribly wrong. I'm sorry too, Inoichi. Inoichi froze, twirling around as a silver-black cage of what looked like electricity surrounded him, locking him in place as a pair of silver-violet eyes stared at him from the dark. Kushina. Funny, isn't it? Her tone was sad, so terribly sad as her mental body took form, resplendent in a purple dress he vaguely remembered seeing her wear years ago. Naruto healed me, gave me his memories, but even at 6 years old he knew Minato would try something like this. To try and take my Sochi from me. The Yamanaka kept very still, wary as hell at being so effortlessly caught in his own area of expertise. What are you going to do? Me. Kushina tilted her head as she rounded the caged Yamanaka. That depends. You see, Ino-kun, you stepped into a little trap Naruto left behind. Hell, I didn't even realize it was here until you entered my head, but now that we're here I can feel the options he left for me. She ran her fingers over the electricity surrounding him. It didn't even so much as spark from her touch, leaving the woman unharmed. Option 1. Cascade implosion. That doesn't sound very healthy. Inochi allowed slowly. It's not. The Uzumaki woman nodded. A pulse of chakra gets ricochet back into your body that tricks your chakra into imploding, similar to what happens to the human body when it suddenly finds itself 20,000 feet under the ocean with no protection from the crushing weight. Yeah, I think I'll pass, if you don't mind. The Yamanaka chuckled weakly. My Ino-chan likes her daddy when he's not a smear on the floor. The mental representation of Kushina. He wasn't even sure if it was her, or just a programmed illusion brought on by this trap he stumbled into, paused momentarily at his words. That's right, your wife gave birth a couple of weeks before I went into labor. That's right. Well, it's a good thing I don't want to use option 1 any more than you do. Kushina returned pleasantly. What's option 2, then? Psionic reformation. Kushina frowned thoughtfully. Basically what you are going to do to me, only you get completely rewritten into a puppet that only obeys my commands. She sighed tiredly. I think Naruto has a bit of an irony is the best punishment mindset. I'd like to avoid that, if you please. Inoichi helpfully added his 2 cents. Damn, Naruto was a complete bastard. Oh, the Yamanaka couldn't help but wonder how the hell a 6-year-old was able to do this, but that really didn't matter right this second, did it? Is there a third option? Oh, course. And you're going to love it, Datban. Kushina chirruped. Option 3, I let you go. Sounds amazing. Inoichi smiled sweetly. None of the mess of option 1, and no having to worry about the mindless puppet of option 2. I know, right? Kushina smiled. Just one thing, Inoichi. You tell that child abusing, deadbeat dad that if he ever tries this crap again, then there is no telling how hard and how fast I will bring my foot to his, Datban. Message received. Kushina senpai. Inoichi gave a nice guy pose. Always wanted to do that at least once in his life, and since he very nearly could have ended up as either a bloody smear or a mindless puppet, he vowed not to put things like this off ever again. Great. The redhead chirruped, waving. Oh, and you might as well let him know I've got so many defenses against Fuinjutsu it isn't even funny. Might as well try to avoid that particular hassle. Inoichi shuddered as his mind returned to his body. Well, that was an experience I won't soon be forgetting. He thought as he stood up and left the room with what little dignity he had left. It didn't take long to return to the Hokage, nor did it take long to hear him cry out in rage once he delivered his report. If he thinks he's crying now, he's going to be weeping once the Council of Clans meet. Inoichi shook his head sadly. He wasn't going to lose his position for this, but there would be sanctions galore for misuse of authority. Makoto was not having a good day. A good day for her was waking up, spending time with her family, a bit of exercise to keep her nice toned body in shape just the way her ever so attentive husband liked it, couple of chores to kill time, spend even more time with her family, cook 3 square meals a day, and if she was really lucky find Fugaku in the mood for some times. So in the grand scheme of things, today was most certainly not a good day for the Uchiha matriarch. First, Tsunade had gone batshit crazy and murdered Sarutobi Hiruzen, an act that didn't do much more than raise a few eyebrows amongst the clan. Not surprising, considering he heavily followed in Tobirama, I hate Uchiha, Senju's footsteps. Frankly, it was more surprising she hadn't snapped before now, but whatever. Second, Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, had apparently flipped his lid and given Konoha the proverbial finger before exiting the village. Oh, and he took Tsunade with him so there would be no retribution against the Sannin for the foreseeable future. Now that 2/3 of the Sannin had gone AWOL, things would no doubt be getting tense in the elemental nations as Konoha once again suffers a rather disastrous hit to its power base. Third, Namikaze Minato had Anbu sent to her home while she was enjoying some quality time with her precious Sasuke, had her rather forcibly get up off her butt and dragged her to the hospital, which is where she was now, with said Hokage on his knees in front of her begging her for help. Please Makoto-san. She won't even talk to me, she won't even give me a chance to explain. Minato half begged, half cried. And, what do you want me to do about it, Minato-kun? Makoto decided she'd be polite if nothing else. Despite taking leave of his senses, he was still the village leader. Just explain things to her, tell her I'm sorry, that I'll make it up. Anything. I'll talk to her. Makoto grunted tiredly. But really Minato-kun, what did you think would happen after all this? I thought. He paused for a moment, sighing. I'd be able to finally come to terms with it. Apologize for not being strong enough to keep her safe, ask her why she refused to let me make the sacrifice. Makoto raised an eyebrow. Well, I'm not really sure how much help I can be. You destroyed your son, Minato, twisted him into someone who only sees hatred and pain, and given what you've told me, he likes to spread the misery to people who deserve it. No. He breathed out through gritted teeth. The Uchiha matriarch sighed, leaving the begging village leader. Oh look. It's Itachi in his Anbu uniform. Hiiii Itachi. She waved at said boy cheerfully. Karasu ignored her, but he couldn't quite ignore the snort from Tenzo. Makoto slipped into Kushina's room with nary a sound, giving the redhead a brilliant smile and wave. Hey Kushi-chan. Hey Miko-chan. The Uzumaki woman smiled lightly. The Tem send you. Oh yes. Got on his hands and knees and everything. Makoto admitted. He, quote unquote, wants me to explain things, say he's sorry, and that'll he'll make it up to you. Oh really? Kushina rolled her silver violet eyes, a detail Makoto caught but shoved in the back of her mind for later. Let me see if I have all my facts straight. He disowned my son, admitted to all of Konoha he was the Jinchuriki for Kyuubi, left him to fend for himself against an entire village reeling from all the destruction left in Kyuubi's wake. Even better than leaving our son to be tormented by a village, he decided to focus all his efforts in saving my life, going so far as to plan my own son's murder just to reseal Kyuubi in me, which wouldn't have worked and just would have resulted in us both being killed. Am I missing anything? Huh. The Uchiha matriarch blinked. I didn't know about the whole murder your son and transfer Kyuubi bit. Not surprising. The Uzumaki woman grunted. All of this. I'm just shocked, I guess. I'm angry. I'm freaking furious. I want to hurt Minato. I want to make him bleed. But, she shuddered, even though he tried to wipe my mind to make me forget about Naruto, it hurts Miko-chan, for someone you love to do so much evil. Makoto crawled into bed with Kushina, grabbing the woman in a tight hug. Shish, it's okay. She blinked. Wow, he really tried to wipe your mind. Ask Inoichi. Kushina sighed tiredly, hugging her bestie back. He ran right into my Sochi's mind trap, could have killed him. Huh. Makoto frowned, half glaring at the redhead. You know I can't even get my children to say I love you, and a child you've seen for maybe an hour your entire life is constructing mind traps to keep you safe. This is completely unfair. Kushina laughed loudly at that. Still, Makoto hummed softly. I think I should warn you. I visited with Naruto a couple of weeks ago and Kushina didn't think she wanted to hear this. Well, you know that whole curse of hatred legend that they say my clan has going on. You've mentioned it before. Yeah, well, Makoto paused a moment, trying to think of a way to say it politely, but then she gave up. Quote. Take it to the 23rd power and you'll have Naruto. Minato really screwed him. I know. Kushina scowled. I swear Miko-chan, first chance I get I'm going to find him. I'm going to take him in my arms and smother him with hugs and kisses. Datban. Good girl. The Uchiha grinned. So anyway, since I'm here and Minato isn't going to dare come in here, wanna catch up on 6 years worth of gossip? You wouldn't believe the prank we pulled on Hinata. Masterful. She laughed. See, what we did was buy a bunch of pink tutus and track down their deer. Kushina smiled as she listened. Losing out on 6 years hurt, waking up and finding everything you loved and put your trust in had either betrayed you, or been so horribly tormented they chose to flee rather than stay, felt like someone was shoving a red-hot poker in your eye. But finding that best friend of yours stroll back into your life as if 6 years hadn't passed, that was a balm for her troubled soul. She still had to figure out what to do in the future, still had to find her Sochi, but for now she was quite content to rest and catch up with a friend she knew would have her back every step of the way. By the way, Kushi-chan, why do you have silver in your eyes and hair like Naruto? Kushina shrugged. Hell if I know. Tsunade didn't expect to survive her vengeance, didn't expect for an ostracized 6-year-old boy to somehow come to her rescue, and in hindsight she really didn't expect him to have some kind of plan for peace. In her defense, she was exhausted. Sarutobi hadn't been a walk in the park by any means, her emotions up to and shortly after his death were running on high octane before sputtering and dying as she resigned herself to fate. That little kiss on her forehead had nothing to do with it, at all. Tsunade, you're staring. Her savior intoned softly. And you're freaking flying. The slug Sanin snapped, not quite able to come to terms with the 6-year-old floating up near the roof in an upside-down lotus position. I'm not flying. He shrugged slightly, merely stretching my chakra and becoming one with the pure world that flutters within the air. Oh, Tsunade rolled her eyes. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Over 1,000 years ago, the very idea of chakra was but a pipe dream for most. He lowered himself to the floor of their refuge, silvery eyes crinkled in amusement, and yet now everyone wields it like a toy made for their own personal amusement. Tsunade grunted, conceding the point with a slight nod. You're saying I'm too stupid to understand, aren't you? No need to be defensive, Tsunade. He smiled lightly. I did not lie to you. Now that we are safe, I will answer your questions. He tilted his head slightly. You just need to ask. Okay. The older woman frowned. Let's start from the top. Prodigy or not, the way you're using chakra. I've never even dreamed of it before, so how the hell does a 6-year-old come across it? Naruto frowned thoughtfully. It's a long story. Welp, good thing I'm now a missing nin. We tend to have all the time in the world between dodging hunters and assassination squads. The slug Sanin returned playfully. Something about admitting it just seemed to tickle her. She almost felt like an animal that had finally gotten out of the leash and promptly gotten lost in the great wide world, completely unsure of what to do. Very well. He shrugged. Do you believe in reincarnation? Tsunade frowned at that. The mere question brought up scenarios and possibilities in her head at just what kind of story he was going to tell her, not to mention various medications for insanity she would prescribe to him. I am a doctor, a woman of knowledge. If there is no evidence to suggest the possibility, then we automatically assume it doesn't exist. Amusing, considering Hashirama Senju was the transmigrant of Asura Otsutsuki, the second-born son of the Rakuto Sennin as the myths describe him. Naruto shot back. First, what's a transmigrant? A transmigrant is a person, an idea, a concept, or a belief that resonated so brightly during a person's life that upon their death that part of their soul refuses to return to the pure earth, forever continuing a cycle of rebirth and death until they achieve the goal they set out in life. He explained neutrally, as if he was reading from a text. A good example would be Indra and Asura. Asura believed in peace through compassion and love, while Indra believed in peace through power to make all others bow before them. He smiled blankly. They were, of course, both wrong and right. Okay. Tsunade returned dumbly. I really don't think there's enough sake in the world to make this make sense. It is simply a way of looking at the world, at chakra, that you have never done before. The silver-eyed boy smiled. I told you I would tell you the truth. I never promised clarity. Seems like a bunch of bullshit to me. Tsunade countered. What do you think chakra is? Naruto riposted evenly. Physical and spiritual combination that is used in all schools of combat. Tai, Nin, Gen, Fuin, Iryo, etc. Now it was her turn to recite information verbatim. It's true. Naruto nodded. And completely wrong. Chakra is everything, Tsunade. It's your breath, it's your memory, it's your life, it's your soul. Name it and I can guarantee you chakra is somehow a part of that too. Alright. Tsunade snapped tiredly. I don't get it. Frankly, I think you're bonkers, but continue your story. It's like I'm trying to teach my brats how to walk again. The silvery blonde sighed. Anyway, I only mentioned Indra and Asura because they were the ones you were most likely to recognize, considering your grandfather was the transmigrant of Asura, and his nemesis, Uchiha Madara, was the transmigrant for Indra. He shrugged at her thunderstruck look. The two brothers have continued their eternal struggle against each other even in death, and that plays out and will continue to play out until one of the other truly succeeds in what they desired. Peace. But You said their piece was right and wrong. The blonde shot back, if their piece is wrong, then that implies they can never truly succeed. Forgive me, I should have clarified. Naruto sighed tiredly. I said they were both wrong and both right. Having the power to enforce peace is meaningless without compassion and love to govern justly, or revolution becomes the inevitability. Likewise, governing with compassion and love but no means to stop conflict will inevitably lead to war. You have to have both power and compassion to attain true peace. Sounds like a pipe dream to me. She decided to be brutally honest in her opinion. It was for a lot of people 2,000 years ago. Naruto admitted with a despondent tone, yet it was achieved. Oh, Tsunade snorted, if your true peace was achieved, how did it break? Betrayal. The boy growled angrily, the one this world knows as the Rakuto Sennin was one of two children born to the heralds of peace. Myth and history alike tells us the Rakuto Sennin brought chakra to the world and spread it among humans, but as we both know history is written by the victors. The Rakuto Sennin was not the progenitor of chakra, it was his mother and her beloved. Yeah, now we're getting into some really mythical bullshit here. Naruto sighed. Very well, too far-fetched for you to believe. Long story short, I'm the reincarnated husband to a betrayed wife, the first to be granted and unlock their chakra. I was betrayed and murdered by my children, Hagoromo, also known as the Rakuto Sennin, and his brother Hamura. They tore my power from my soul and used it to imprison my wife and then later to restart the cycle of war. Restart the cycle of war. What do you think happened when this Sennin of legend walked the earth and began handing chakra to humans? Naruto grumped. With the heralds of peace gone, the power in my equation of peace was lost. Compassion and understanding lasted only for so long, and as chakra spread across the world, people inevitably found ways to use it to enforce their will on others. A person dead here, a person dead there, clans forming and rivalries festering, it only took a moment before the fighting began anew. He gazed at her pointedly, or have we forgotten the clan wars that raged for so long prior to the founding of the hidden villages? I haven't. The medic scowled. It's just, this is too ridiculous. It doesn't make sense, how can you expect me to believe it? I require you to do nothing, least of all believe. Naruto returned simply. I gave you my word, and I am honoring it in hopes of saving you. Saving me? Tsunade snorted. You already did that, remember? Plucked me right from Konoha. I can move you, I can take you to the ends of the earth and back, but I can't fill the shell you have become. The silvery blonde hummed. Only a higher purpose, one for the benefit of all those who suffer under the cruel fate of this impure world, can fill that void. Pure world, impure world, transmigrants, heralds and whack job chakra sermons. Tsunade spat. None of this makes any sense. Naruto frowned, silent for a time in deep thought. His eyes hardened as he spoke. Place your hands upon my head. The hell for? Tsunade shot back even as she shuffled close to the boy. She really didn't believe any of this horse shit, but was still pleasantly unbalanced from all the recent ups and downs that she didn't much care. You do not understand, you refuse to even consider. He explained slowly. Then I remembered. The first step to truth isn't taken because someone tells you to, but because you catch a glimpse of it and demand to know more. He stared into her hazel brown eyes pointedly. Place your hands on my head, and discover what it means to understand chakra for only a moment. You aren't on any hallucinogens, are you? She asked jokingly as she put her hands on his head. Cause seriously, kid, you sound like an utter whaaaaaaaaaaa. Tsunade froze as her entire world shattered, his chakra merely fluttering against hers and yet completely destroying the way she viewed the world. Chakra as life, as a thought, as a clenched fist and the spoken word. It was up, it was down, it was side by side and far and wide. A person's perception, a belief, a shuddering moan, creation and destruction and time ticking and. Naruto pulled away, and in that moment Tsunade realized she felt nothing but complete and utter loss at having her mind exposed to the eternity he wielded simply because he made it so. The boy took to his feet, stretching even as she weakly reached out to grab him. She wanted to taste that again, feel that omnipotence of perspective. What? Why? She whimpered. Because this world is wretched, because I believe you are strong enough to stand up and change it for the innocent and those sacrificed upon the altar of war. Naruto returned softly. Why me? She couldn't understand it. If he had that kind of power bundled up within him, Surely he could force everyone to bow to his wishes. Certainly he could end this endless age of sacrifice and slaughter. Because in the end, I am only half of the equation. The transmigrant sighed, power and compassion. My role was never power. I was the observer, the one who taught people the joy of love and the misery of sinning. And when I fail, then the one who holds the power steps in to enforce peace. He stared up at the ceiling in thought, eyes unfocused. Unless this world can free the herald, or raise another in her place, there will never be peace. He glanced back at the unmoving woman staring blankly at the floor. Only with purpose can you, an empty shell, find the peace and joy you crave. Think on it, Tsunade. You have exposed the white Zetsu. His Sochi snarled, glaring angrily, eye alight with menace. Oh, Naruto blinked. How did I do that, Sochi? Breaking into a electronically recorded room, allowing him to be taped, exposing him to the Konoha forces just to rescue a foolish woman you fancy for her disgusting looks. Black Zetsu roared in rage. If Naruto didn't know for a fact he could obliterate him, he wouldn't doubt his Sochi would be attacking him right this moment. That is quite a lie. Naruto groaned. First, as far as whatever this recorded thing is you're speaking about, I had nothing to do with it. I had sent the white Zetsu ahead weeks before to survey the area and inform me of the dangers. If even the dolls didn't discover it, I don't see why you'd think I would the first time I enter a room. You sent the white Zetsu to scout. Black Zetsu scowled, and they made no mention of it. Oh. The white Zetsu his son was currently latched onto looked scandalized. Don't tell me we're getting jealous and trying to mess things up for you and father. That's so mean. From the way he said it, this sounded like a reoccurring problem. Naruto thoughtfully decided he was creeped out by seeing his son merged with those useless pieces of shit white Zetsus. As for the foolish woman I fancied for her disgusting looks, I wouldn't have even considered saving her if the white Zetsus hadn't suggested she'd be useful to your plan to restore your mother. He frowned. I hope he wasn't lying. I've been working on swaying her to the path of peace and I really don't want my efforts to be wasted like that. Black Zetsu shifted a bit, agitated and furious, but Naruto could tell it wasn't at him now. It seems I've been misinformed. Naruto waved it off. No harm, Sochi. There's a reason I generally hate white Zetsu, and this is just one of them. His Sochi's little hanger-on pouted. Hey, we're not all bad. But you are all annoying. The silvery blonde shot right back. I will punish them for this. His Sochi sighed. As for this Sanin, at the moment, she is useless. The organization I'm forming that will capture the Shinju shards is still in its infancy. Once Hanzo the salamander is dead, we'll begin active recruitment, and at that time she may find use in the plan with Akatsuki. Black Zetsu frowned tiredly. Still so much work to do. Hey. Naruto walked up and pinched his cheek. You turn that frown upside down. You're busy. I get it. Lots of stuff going on. But Sochi, remember, even our beloved Kaguya took breaks to enjoy the love of her family. I know until now you've had no true family, but, he smiled brightly. I'm here for you, son, even if you just want to talk about the weather, or rant and rave about what stupid shit the white Zetsu have gotten involved in now. Black Zetsu chuckled, smiling that utterly monstrous smile that was beautiful only to Naruto. It will take some getting used to, father. But I will try. It was a start, and they still had years to build upon it. Naruto stared up at the gigantic cage in amusement. His prisoner, the Shinju shard glaring down at him with absolute fury and hatred, did nothing but tickle him. For all the Biju's posturing, for all his intimidating might, he was little more than a lost child birthed by a wretched boy and his stupidity. Hardly an innocent by his actions, yet an innocent by birth. He doubted these so-called Biju had any choice in the matter. So, you are this Kyuubi I've heard so much about. He began with a smile, no reason to be impolite just yet. Kyuubi snarled angrily, why have you come here? To gloat. To piss and preen and insult my father. Ah yes, your father. He sighed ruefully. I must say I am quite irritated by that boy's foolishness. To think he would take the Shinju, break it apart like so much meat, wrap them all up in nice little packages and then give birth to you. He frowned, just in time for him to die and leave you in misery. If ever I see my son again we will be having words. You know nothing of him. Kyuubi glared. He was kindness. He gave us life, purpose, freedom. You are just a relic of a failed age. Oh. Naruto blinked. What kindness to let you loose in a world consumed by the power mad. What life you live consumed by your petty hatred and rage. What purpose do you serve, truly? You are the personification of hatred in this world, the very identity of the menace that causes all to suffer. Yet, what freedom can you claim now? Bound by your hatred since your birth, you are now bound by the very power your father stole from his parents and handed to your jailers as if he were handing sweets to a ravenous child. Humans have perverted his teachings. Kyuubi allowed grudgingly. Humans are flawed. They have brought this ruin down upon us all. That is no fault of the sage, merely his naive belief they were worth the effort. Ha, ha ha. The silvery blonde laughed. Amazing. Humans are flawed. Indeed we are. He practically leered at the beast behind the cage. Did you know Hagamoro is, at base, human? His mother was human before being empowered with chakra. I was human before she shared her fruit to save my life. You judge the very beings that gave birth to your precious Rakuto Sennin, yet hold him up on a pedestal and ignore his failings. He laughed. I never thought a piece of the Shinju would ever be so blinded by hypocrisy. Kyuubi glared, its anger rising up in a wave of blinding chakra. He roared at his jailer, unable to contain its hatred at having the only being who ever loved them insulted and ridiculed. Ah, there it is. Naruto raised his hand and pulled at the angry Biju chakra the Kyuubi had been percolating in his rage. He grinned nastily as he absorbed the chakra into his body. Thank you. I found myself in need of some extremely strong yang chakra and figured, hell, there is a piece of the Shinju inside of me. Why not? You angered me to steal my chakra. Kyuubi didn't know whether to laugh at the irony of it all or cry. After all, the best means he had ever found to take over his hosts was to play to their anger, and here the table had been turned. Of course. Naruto shrugged. What? Did you really think I'd come down here and poke the child of my son because I felt some petty need for vengeance? He snorted. Even if I did, I would not target you with it. You are innocent of his crimes against me, misunderstood because you are something no one has bothered trying to understand. He smiled sadly. I'd be a terrible pillar of compassion if I didn't recognize this. Kyuubi swirled his tails around, agitated. He just couldn't understand the entity before him, and frankly right now he didn't even want to try. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, gazing at the full moon overhead, its gentle caress reminding him of the love he shared with his princess. Time. It was only a matter of time until they found a way to free her, of their Sochi's quest to reach fruition. Even now he was preparing for his own role in it, utilizing the Shinju's yang chakra to take care of his physical conditioning, to advance the body in time before he locked its growth. I'm leaving. Oh. Naruto glanced back at the Sannin, silver blue eyes staring intently into her own hazel. Tsunade smiled weakly. I've considered what you showed me. It is something I want, something I need, but you can't commit until the one you cherish most is free. The silvery blonde nodded knowingly. Yet, you fear you'll never again be given my offer. I don't know how you do it. The slug Sannin breathed, to just look at me and see through my fears and desires. It's because I was once like you. He smiled wanly. There was a time where I nearly threw everything I was away to see my beloved safe. He sighed. You see, in that time of war and blood, my beloved was a princess. Not typical of nobility in any day and age, she refused to turn her gaze from the endless suffering and deluge of blood. Refused to ignore the innocent suffering so that she might live the cherished life of comfort and protection. What happened? My beloved merely decided. No more. She swore to journey, to find the power to end the killing, and she spoke with such belief we, 9 of us, guardians, we followed her without hesitation. He chuckled sadly. Through war-torn lands we traveled, 6 of us falling to battle, to our eternal oath to protect her dream. And yet as we neared our destination, we were betrayed. Betrayed. Tsunade gently prompted. Only 3 guardians remained. Naruto spoke slowly, an echo of heartache in his tone. Kaizen and Kaiza, twin brothers and very skilled in swordplay, and of course myself. I was so blinded by my belief in the princess that I failed to see the treason that erupted in their hearts. He glanced at the Sannin sadly. The question, it started as a whisper, grew into a murmur, until all they could hear was the terrible question, why should she gain the power we seek? They tried to kill her, didn't they? Yes. Naruto nodded slowly. They attacked her in her tent, yet were not aware that she and I had become close. When they stabbed their swords into the bed, they pierced not her flesh, but mine. Yet even wounded, I recognized their attempt to murder the one person I cared about more than myself. So I killed them, tore them to pieces, kept her safe. How badly were you wounded? Tsunade frowned thoughtfully. I shouldn't have lived more than a couple of hours. Naruto returned honestly. I told my beloved, begged her even, to leave me behind and get to the fruit that would give her the power to bring peace to the world. And you know what she did. I'm sensing a not so tragic end, since you apparently survived. The Sannin grinned. Romantic though, I'll give you that. Naruto snorted. Yes, well, I suppose it is. My beloved told me no, never. We would both reach the goal or she would gladly leave this world in the dark wretched cycle it had fallen into. At that moment, in our search for peace and understanding, we realized that without those we cherish we would inevitably falter. She firmly believed if she had left me behind to die she would have gained the power, brought peace, only to eventually lose herself to her power because without me, there was no point. There was no balance. There was simply nothing to live for. I see. Tsunade hummed softly, and you see yourself in me. Unwilling to leave my loved one alone out there. I see someone who wants to bring true peace to the world, but knows without someone to fight for, without someone to live for, that even should peace be obtained it would be nothing but a hollow and pointless victory for you. He smiled cheekily. In you I see both myself and my beloved. Two sides of the same coin, very beautiful if I do say so myself. PFF'd. The slug Sannin snorted. Shameless flirting will get you in trouble one day, little boy. Mo, don't say that. Naruto flailed his arms. If my beloved heard that she'd relax. Tsunade snorted as she hopped to her feet. I'm just teasing. Whoever this beloved of yours is, well, looks like she knew how to pick a worthy man. She frowned. Even if you are a bit of a midget. I could say something here, but I think I'll just quiet while I'm ahead. The silvery blonde chuckled. And a man who knows when to give up. Tsunade laughed. Oh, the jealousy I feel is ridiculous. She shook her head as she took off. Stay in touch, kid, we'll see each other again. Looking forward to it. Naruto watched after the retreating Sannin until she vanished from view, returning his eyes to the moon. Are you feeling better, Kaheim? Are the anchors feeding you as I hoped? He received no response. Not that he expected any just yet, but with the anchors, yes, soon he'd be able to communicate with his beloved whenever they wished to speak. It was just a matter of time and power, and he had plenty of both. Black Zetsu contemplated the new piece on the field, questioned what or how the entity now known as Uzumaki Naruto, his father, would fit into his plans. He had contemplated keeping him away from Akatsuki, from Obito, and only revealing him towards the end just so they could siphon the Kyuubi out of him. Yet, why? His father was power tempered through compassion, but he was still power at base. Within Akatsuki he could openly work to hasten the return of their beloved, not to mention the very much desired side benefit of being able to watch and get in some quality father-son time, a fact he suddenly found himself amused to no end about. I have a father. He murmured in his mind, turning his gaze to his master, the boy so broken-hearted at the loss of the girl who rejected him and died a pitiful death at the hands of his closest friend. Obito Uchiha was not what he'd call a person worthy of compassion or love, just one of the many wretched souls his father or mother would have removed long before they could rise to threaten the peace. It was rather ironic Zetsu now turned to the very being least deserving of that peace in order to usher it forward. Still, as his father often laughed to him about, irony is the best punishment. And he could think of no greater irony than using the man least deserving of compassion to create it. Madara. Zetsu made a show of calling to him, already feeling the eyes of pain glance over him, gauging him, searching him for a lie or duplicity hidden beneath the tone and gestures of his voice and body. Such distrust was commonplace, and the immortal being had long since learned to reveal nothing. The situation in Konoha has changed. Konan, the bluette he knew, trusted them not at all, her gray eyes boring into him as he spoke. Zetsu found similarities with her and Nagato, similarities between them and his father and mother. The closest this world had ever come to creating a pillar of power, Nagato, coupled with a pillar of compassion, Konan. Yet they were flawed, lacked that bit of spark that would have them truly usher peace to this broken world. Nagato saw nothing but pain, nothing but a wretched world he would force to bend knee before him in supplication. Power was never meant to judge, merely be directed after compassion could not tame the evil it would be set against. Conan took the pain of all, yet could not heal it, a helpless girl too scared to share herself to understand that compassion required one to not just take the pain of others, but to also share it. Those reasons alone reminded Zetsu that as close as they appeared in ideology to his beloved mother and wonderful father, they were but flawed and broken humans incapable of the true peace to come. Has it? The disguised Obito didn't care in the least. I thought all of our efforts were focused here, in ending Hanzo's tyranny and bringing peace to AIM. Why bring up Konoha? It's good to keep eye on unruly neighbors, isn't it? The white Zetsu he was merged with threw out cheekily. Tsunade of the Sannin has gone rogue, murdering the third Hokage before fleeing Konoha with the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. Black Zetsu bit out, trying to one-eye glare at his white half and failing miserably. The loss of Tsunade, of Sarutobi, and Uzumaki Naruto has considerably weakened the village's power base. We border Konoha, a thin shield for them to hide from Iwa. Conan murmured softly. Zetsu had to admit, that girl was intelligent, sharp, and very well aware at what Konoha's instability could bring to AIM. War. TCH. Madara scowled. Iwa won't press for Konoha, not with their Yondamin Hokage still in charge. Uzumaki Kushina has been revived. White Zetsu threw out carelessly. And she is peaced. He sang childishly. Madara twitched at that. An act Zetsu had no doubt Conan picked up on. Pain would have too, he believed, if he hadn't already latched onto certain bits of the information he revealed. Uzumaki. Pain intoned, a name I have not heard in quite some time. He turned his gaze on Madara. Are they relevant to you, Madara? Hardly. Madara defended neutrally. One is but a child tossed away like trash by his father, burdened with power beyond his understanding or capacity to control. And the other, as a mother who has awoken to find her child tortured by the father who should have loved him. White Zetsu chuckled. Oh boy, the Yondamin Hokage has been having a real bad time lately. Good. Madara snapped with some anger. Keep an eye on the situation surrounding AIM, Zetsu. I care not for Konoha. Let it stand or let it fall. Hanzo is our target, our objective, our only obstacle before we can bring peace to this land, and from here spread it to the world. Of course. Black Zetsu said swiftly, anything to stop his white counterpart from dragging this out. He had planted the seed in Pain's mind, riled the irritation in Obito as he had intended, now it was time to retreat and continue the mission. He began sinking into the stone floor, risking a jagged smile in response to the hard stare Conan was giving him. Such a keen mind, she's no doubt suspicious and will advise caution for Pain, which shouldn't do much more than water the seedling. Baby steps. Jiraiya tried to calm his troubled thoughts, to put his mind on the objective he had set out to perform. Tsunade's betrayal had hurt deep, her murdering Sarutobi a blistering wound that was still raw and he doubted it would ever stop aching. Yet even with that pain, even as he had watched helplessly as the one woman he had truly loved gleefully murdered the only man he had ever considered his father, he still listened. He was known as a pervert to many, a lout to some, a hero to others, but whatever people called him, the truth was he was a sentimental old fool good for listening, but not so good for seeing the truth. Tsunade hadn't lied. Orochimaru, the first of the Sannin to turn traitor, had filed an official complaint against sending Naoki out into the field untested. A complaint that got swept under the rug and gleefully ignored, a complaint that had it only been heeded could have saved the young Senju and prevented the pain and misery that had consumed the Senju princess. The question of why reverberated in his mind. Why would Sarutobi set this up? Why would he arrange such heartache for Tsunade? He had to admit the results of Naoki's death had scarred the woman, turning her into an engine of death and destruction as she turned her grief on their enemies, but he didn't want to believe that was the cause. Sure, Tsunade had been retreating more and more from military matters, focusing her not so inconsiderable talents on the healing arts, but if killing Naoki had been a ploy to ignite her rage and bring her back into the fold, then Jiraiya was quite willing to admit Sarutobi deserved to die. Still, it just didn't feel right to him. Dan's death was a bit more circumstantial. While Tsunade had become a butcher after Naoki's death for a time, she had calmed down considerably when the man she ultimately fell in love with entered her life. She was being brought out of her funk, focusing herself once more on healing and nurturing and avoiding the battlefields as much as she possibly could. The information screw-up had been traced to the wrong scroll with the wrong set of orders being sent out, a clerical error of all things, but given recent events Jiraiya couldn't help but see how suspicious it all came together. Dan and a few Konoha nin had been ordered to monitor the forest path that led into Yukasaina Pass, an area that according to the orders wasn't of vital importance but needed to be monitored just in case an invading force from Kumo thought to take the pass. The only problem was an invading force had already taken it, and before Dan or the Konoha nin had realized it they were mercilessly surrounded and subsequently overwhelmed. Oh sure, they had held on long enough for reinforcements to arrive, but that just let the mortally wounded Dan die in Tsunade's arms. Jiraiya grimaced, tossing a glance back towards the red-haired woman meandering down the street, her silvery violet eyes taking stock of all the changes Konoha had undergone since the Kyuubi attack. The Toad Sanin put thoughts of Tsunade to the back of his mind for now as he moved purposefully towards Kushina. Jiraiya. Kushina intoned, not even bothering to turn her head as her eyes remained riveted on a particular home. Really? After all this time that's the first thing you say? He decided to try and ease into this with some levity. Hurts this old man's heart when one of Konoha's most beautiful women resists that overwhelming temptation to jump into my arms for a nice warm hug. Kushina snorted, glancing over her shoulder, still an arrow senin, I hate that nickname. The Toad Sanin scowled petulantly. Why can't you call me the gallant Jiraiya like everyone else? No one calls you that. Kushina shot back with a half-hearted smirk. Just arrow senin. A pervert, a dirty old man, a senile fool, an impotent old. Enough. I get it. Jiraiya sighed. Even after 6 years, no respect. The redhead frowned, smirk twisting into a sneer. What does the Tem want now? Am I really so obvious? He sighed, but didn't bother trying to continue the pleasantries anymore. Oh, you know, your forgiveness, your understanding, answers to why you turned against him that night. What? Kushina blinked. What the hell are you talking about? I never turned against Minato, not until I woke from my coma, and only because he turned against me when he tossed my son out like trash. Minato explained it to me. Jiraiya grunted. He was planning to use the Shiki Fujin to seal the beast, willing die so you could live, so Naruto wouldn't grow up without his mother. He frowned slightly, but then you attacked him and performed the sealing yourself, something that taxed your already exhausted chakra and put you on the brink of death. He stared hard at the woman. The question Minato asked me in those first days was, why? Why did you sacrifice yourself for him? Why leave him in this cruel world with a child that did nothing but remind him the love of his life chose to end herself over a child while leaving him in misery? Kushina just stared. Wow, really? She shook her head. Seriously, you're telling me that he couldn't figure out why I stopped him? Why I sealed the Kyuubi with the last of my chakra? Gah, that idiot. If you'd just talked to him about it. That big baby. The woman huffed. I thought he was a man, not a cry baby. Sure, I knew he was flaky and a bit girly, but I figured he'd gotten over all that. I don't really understand you. Jiraiya thought she was going to explain, not call the only SS rank shinobi in the world a big crybaby, or insult his masculinity. I was already dead. Jiraiya. Kushina spat. I know it isn't something that generally comes up, especially since the practice of creating Jinchuriki didn't start until after the hidden villages were established, but when you extract a biju the container dies. You didn't. He riposted, honestly never having heard about all this. Jinchuriki didn't die often, usually in battle, where the seals would retain the biju for a time so they could be harvested and transferred to another. A Jinchuriki being extracted before death only happened if they were already dying from old age, which as far as he knew only happened with Uzumaki Mito. My family is an exception. The redhead snorted. Non-Uzumaki Jinchuriki die immediately when extracted, Uzumaki don't, not immediately, but we still die just the same. Why? Because the extraction tears our very essence into shreds. The only reason Uzumaki keep breathing for a little while is because of our life force, Databane. So, Jiraiya frowned at this new information, letting the puzzle of new information fit into the old. Since you were already going to die, you stopped Minato from using Shiki Fujin so he would live. I didn't want Naruto growing up like we did. Like you did. An orphan with no parents to love them. Kushina snapped bitterly. Fat lot of good it did me, though. That worthless child-abusing prick did exactly what I begged him not to. I see. Jiraiya grimaced. If that's the way it worked, then extracting Kyuubi to heal Kushina wouldn't have worked. He'd just have killed the innocent child, and Kushina, having to be exposed to real time during the procedure, would have fallen just the same. It was a chilling realization, to know the person you were trying to help would have lost not just the woman he loved, but the child he spurned in the process. It's something you need to talk with Minato about, make him understand, if only to close the book on this tragedy. Hell no. Kushina snarled. I'm never talking to that fool again. Not while my Naruto is out there, hiding and living in misery while Mr. High and Mighty Hokage sits on his throne living happily. She sneered dangerously. Never while that fool who planned to murder my child just to try and bring me back gets off scot-free. She knows. The pervert winced. How did you find out? Naruto. She shrugged. He knew, and he made damn sure I knew everything that had happened. She chuckled sadly. Sochi. He knows the best punishment is irony, so what better punishment for Minato than to be given what he most wished for, but then be denied it? Is he punishing Minato? Are you? Jiraiya countered. Both of us, I think. Kushina shrugged. Me for trusting such a broken fool, and Minato for everything he was planning to do to him. She smiled then, brilliantly, the difference. He doesn't despise me. If I want to get him back, all I have to do is find and tell him. What makes you so sure? He didn't understand how she could believe something like that. She knew nothing of Naruto, not who he was truly at any rate. Finding out her son had been treated like a leper wouldn't be anywhere near enough to understand a person like she was suggesting. Kushina shrugged, turning her gaze up to the moon in the night sky. That's for me to know and for you to never find out, Datban. Minato realized he was in a bit of a bind when the Council of Clans were called, an event that only happened once every 3 months or when something of particular importance for them, or Konoha, was brought to light. Given Tsunade turning traitor, that boy fleeing with Kyuubi, Sarutobi being brutally murdered, and the revival of his wife and his subsequent rejection by said woman for his own actions, a council of clans occurring was honestly a foregone conclusion. Seeing that old warhawk Danzo actually attend was a bit of a surprise, the old fool being reduced to little more than a civilian after he had slaughtered his root program and dismissed him as Anbu commander following the Kyuubi attack. Despite the heartache of that particular event, he knew he had done Konoha a world of good removing that particular pest, not to mention Kaharu and Homura. Still, for him to be here now, trouble was afoot. Order. The Speaker of Clans, an elected official, Nara clan this time if Minato remembered right, lazily slapped his gavel on the table. Since Konoha's foundation we blah 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 blah. The Nara lazily truncated the long-winded speech that always preceded the council, a fact Minato was amused to note was the very reason the Nara clan were often voted into said position. Given the long list of topics we're here to discuss, I think we can start with the most irritating and be done with it. The speaker droned, specifically, Tsunade of the Sanin's betrayal and her murder of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Nara Shikaku grunted. We've already issued warning to all shinobi villages, placed her in the bingo book with a capture if possible, terminate if necessary bounty and warning. Her statements made during her assault on Sarutobi-sama are being investigated, but as of this moment has not been validated. He glanced towards Danzo, unless Shimura-sama, the then acting Anbu commander, would like to make a statement. Danzo grunted. Secrets are kept and lies told for a reason. He may as well have confirmed the truth behind Tsunade's claims as far as the council would be concerned, which wasn't particularly something Minato wanted to hear in this meeting. While Danzo could not actually admit to the truth, there was absolutely nothing to stop him from getting around it. Especially after being so thoroughly stripped of his power and position as Minato had done. I see. Shikaku grunted, eyes narrowing in thought. Shame. Does anyone have a question or concern about the issue of Tsunade? The speaker pushed on, looking for all the world like he just wanted to go home. A few questions were tossed back and forth, but nothing relevant or interesting, so Minato ignored it. Very well. On to the desertion of Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi, and his apparent aiding and abetting of the murderer and traitor Tsunade of the Sanin. The next hot topic was pushed forward. I'd like to know why Uzumaki-san was not being monitored as he should have been. Inoichi Yamanaka spoke up. Given his poor upbringing and noted lack of love or loyalty for this village, he was dubbed a flight risk, yet no one even had a clue he was involved, nor would we if he didn't so brazenly show up to essentially laugh in our Hokage's face. Minato grimaced at that. Inoichi was being polite. After all, Naruto didn't so much as brazenly laugh in his face, but laughed as he cruelly hinted at the fact he was finished destroying his hopes and dreams for reuniting with Kushina. He had to admire the brat for that. When he wanted to get some payback, he did it with the kind of precision that would make the likes of Danzo proud. Anbu Squad Tetra from Bravo Company was assigned to the Jinchuriki at the time these events began to play out. Shikaku grumbled. They reported the boy had entered his home and did not discover he was missing until Jiraiya arrived and entered the home. Why exactly was Jiraiya there? Danzo threw out the question. After all, it's a matter of public knowledge the Jinchuriki was kept socially isolated from nearly everyone, and that he had absolutely no prior contact with the Sannin up to this point. Minato frowned. Danzo was aiming for something, but what? He couldn't know the truth of things, so he was digging. I sent Jiraiya to gather the boy and take him to the hospital. He decided to be honest. It's not like he had anything to fear from honesty. Tsunade, prior to her defection, had developed a theory concerning an ongoing medical issue, and it was believed, after testing, that the Jinchuriki could be used to solve that issue. Oh, what medical issue would require the Jinchuriki? Hiashi frowned. Or perhaps, what could Uzumaki Naruto have that couldn't have been gotten from somewhere else? I ask, because right now I can only surmise the Kyuubi was to be used to solve this medical issue. And using the Jinchuriki, or the Kyuubi, is prohibited without the majority vote from the Shinobi Council, which I can assure you no such motion was brought forward, seeing that I'm on it. Fugaku Uchiha frowned, backing up the Hyuga despite the irritation he no doubt felt at it, which makes me leery as to what was intended for the boy. Ah, Minato shrugged. While it's true I'd need the Shinobi Council to approve using the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi in a matter of state security, the issue was minor and well within my rights as Hokage to enact so long as the situation had proper oversight, which it did, and the reason for Jiraiya-san's presence. Oh, Danzo HM Med, and what exactly was this situation? As this council is very well aware, Uzumaki Kushina, the previous Jinchuriki and my wife, was being held in a near-death state due to wounds and chakra-related issues gathered on the night of the Kyuubi attack. Minato explained slowly. Tsunade had stipulated, and Jiraiya had tested, a procedure that would transfer just enough Kyuubi chakra into Kushina in order to balance the dissonance that was killing her. Isn't that rather foolish? Hiashi was blunt. Kushina-sama, while a dear friend to many of us on this council, would certainly not want to risk this village so brazenly. I agree. Fugaku reeled mentally at backing up Hiashi for a second time. You should have removed your wife to a safe and isolated location in order to perform this procedure. Still, Shuza spoke up with a smile. It worked. Kushina is awake and was already released from the hospital, I'm told. Danzo blinked. Ah, Akamaiki Dono, the procedure never took place. Oh, the rotund man blinked. If that's true, then how is Kushina awake now? I can answer that. Inochi sighed, leaning forward on the table with his hands steepled over his nose. It would appear Naruto himself fixed the issue while we were all distracted by events taking place between Tsunade and Sarutobi. He infiltrated the hospital undetected with the assistance of an as of yet unknown entity named Zetsu. The video surveillance recorded as the Uzumaki drained and removed the stasis fuinjutsu, keeping Kushina in a near-death state. From reports he seemed to flood the woman with his own chakra, and not Kyuubi's. The effects of this seemed to heal the woman, but also transferred the boy's memories as well as allowed him to construct some, rather damning traps within the woman's mind to deter anyone from ever removing them. Why did you enter her mind in the first place? Shikaku frowned slightly. By order of the Hokage, I was to enter her mind and remove all memory of the boy, from his existence to her pregnancy. Inoichi dropped the bomb. Minato sighed at the glares he got at that, but it wasn't anything he wasn't already expecting. He had given the order, and while unbalanced at being so thoroughly rejected, that fact certainly wasn't an excuse that would fly with anyone in the council. I'm aware I overreacted considering the situation, and have already docked myself half a year's pay, and before anyone argues more sanctions, let it be known I've already consulted with Shikaku and we've agreed to an oversight committee to monitor my behavior and actions for a period of 1 year. If further restraints are necessary during the period of oversight, then the council will be informed and harsher punishments assigned. Meh. Sume scowled angrily, but turned her gaze back to Inoichi. So you're basically saying Naruto healed Kushina, forced the memories of his rotten life on her, then made her mind some kind of fortress so no one could remove M. Ah. I'll quote Kushina's thought on the matter. Inoichi smiled weakly. My son seems to have a irony is the best punishment mindset. He had, quite correctly, assumed the Hokage would attempt to remove or circumvent the truth and left behind defenses to stop him. Which raises another point of interest. Danzo bowled in, not at all interested in hearing how the Jinchuriki had punished his father. The boy is 6 years old. 6. How was he able to do all this? Draining chakra isn't unheard of, but doing so while breaking seals. Not to mention healing a woman who until the moment he showed up we had no clue he even knew existed. Minato frowned. As far as breaking seals, it could be a sign of his Uzumaki blood. He sighed tiredly. The Uzumaki were generally known to be good at Fuinjutsu and all its sub-schools. A seal breaker in Uzumaki culture was considered something like nobility for their ability to break down any seal they saw, bypass locks and restrictions with the greatest of ease until the seals themselves were left bare before their eye. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hiashi frowned, but wouldn't that mean he could break his own seal? The one holding Kyuubi from rampaging? Couldn't say. Minato shrugged uncomfortably. Until he destroyed my Fuinjutsu I didn't even know if he had a gift for it, as it's not something we teach to children in any way, shape or form. Could this seal breaker in Uzumaki culture, could they see chakra? Danzo intoned softly, a look of concentration about him. I have no idea. The Hokage shrugged, but you're asking the wrong person. As much as I know about the Uzumaki, Kushina knows infinitely more. Why ask about their ability to see chakra specifically, Danzo? Shikaku threw out the question. I ran into the Jinchuriki during the Kyuubi festival. The Shimura shrugged lightly. He caught sight of me running a puppet show, and asked how I made the chakra strings, and alluded to the fact he could see them. If he told you that, why didn't you report it? Minato snapped. It wasn't my business. Danzo shrugged. I'm retired, remember? And it was the responsibility of the Hokage to keep an eye on the boy, so I figured with that ever so vigilant and wise gaze of yours you'd already know. Lying sack of filth. Minato scowled inwardly. His attempt to make him look incompetent aside, which worked beautifully he had to admit, Danzo was still fishing for something and for the life of Minato he just could not figure it out. Regardless, Fugaku interjected, the issue of Uzumaki Naruto remains despite all the unknown factors, such as his ability to create mind traps or whatever he did. The boy is still the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and now he is out of the village with a woman who betrayed us all. If any village finds out about this, and let's not kid ourselves, some probably already know, then the Uzumaki is going to be hunted in order to provide a weapon for a potential enemy. Given his stated lack of love or loyalty to this village, and given the atrocious way he was raised, anyone would find it easy to turn his hatred of us to their benefit. Minato grunted. Agreed. Indeed. Shikaku frowned thoughtfully. Yet let's hold off on actually putting him in the bingo book. While Fugaku is likely correct, only some villages may know about our missing Jinchuriki. Release this information to the public and suddenly everyone will know and be on the hunt. For the time being we should attempt to find the boy ourselves, and if we fail only then should we release the information, maybe we get lucky and a good Samaritan will return him. Fugaku droned neutrally, even if everyone could tell he was being sarcastic as hell. Very well. The speaker droned. Any more questions concerning the issue of Uzumaki Naruto? Yes. Danzo grunted, turning his one eye to Minato purposefully. Tell me something, Hokage-sama, what was Kushina's dream as a child? I don't see how that has any relevance. The fourth returned slowly, mind a whirl at just where this was going. He wasn't blind. Danzo was revving up for something, and you didn't need to be a Hyuga to see it coming from a mile away. Humor me. The Warhawk grinned. It is actually very relevant to the matter. Fine. She wished to become Hokage. Minato returned calmly. And when you married, when you were elected for Hokage, what happened to Kushina's dream then? Danzo pressed. She told me that her dream was now mine, and I should live it for both of us. I see. The old man chuckled. I do believe you are right, Inoichi. That boy really does have a irony is the best punishment mindset. Oh. Inoichi frowned. And where are you going with this? During the event where Sarutobi was murdered, I received several, how shall I say it, incriminating parcels. Danzo slowly revealed. One was from Tsunade, and while I hold her word with about as much weight as we would any traitor, the information contained was very interesting. If it wasn't for the second parcel, I wouldn't have believed it myself. Believed what, exactly? Minato questioned guardedly. Danzo looked him straight in the eye fearlessly. I wouldn't have believed that you, Hokage-sama, had been involved in a conspiracy to murder an innocent child for your own gain. He reached below the table, ignoring the incredulous or suspicious looks from the council as he pulled out 2 scrolls and set them on the table. Do you deny it, Hokage-sama? Minato frowned at the sight of those scrolls, wishing to God he knew what was in them. Was this his plan? Was this what he had been preparing for the entire meeting? I'm afraid I'm at a bit of a loss for what you're suggesting. Maybe if you could illuminate it for me. HMPH. Danzo snorted. Oh, I most certainly will. Just one question, for verification purposes, before I do. This procedure to heal Kushina, prior to the events that led Uzumaki Naruto to do it, were you truthfully prepared to go through with it? Minato knew he couldn't lie. He had all but outright stated it was going to happen earlier in the meeting. Yes, a Dr. Yakushi was to perform it since Tsunade had refused prior to going traitor. Did she now? Danzo nodded slowly, gesturing to the leftmost scroll. This scroll contains a written confession and all research materials concerning the procedure to revive Uzumaki Kushina, written and signed by Tsunade of the Sanin. In this confession, he idly tossed the scroll to Shikaku, letting him get a gander at the information therein. She states she refused to perform the treatment due to the very high possibility it would require the complete transfer of the Kyuubi from Uzumaki Naruto to Uzumaki Kushina, and that such a procedure would most likely result in the death of the child and likely the woman as well. Minato froze in horror. This was something he had kept as close to his chest as possible, something he knew would bury him politically if it got out, and right now, right in front of him, that was exactly what was happening. Of course, she is a traitor. Danzo allowed, rolling the last scroll in his hand. This next scroll came with a price, one I thought silly, but in light of recent revelations I can't help but admire that boy's viciousness. Naruto. Minato breathed in despair. Yes, you see, he believes in irony. The Warhawk grinned, and since you decided to live Kushina's dream for her, and his choice of revenge for your actions against him was to completely cut you away from the woman, he viewed your position as Hokage as just something he couldn't let remain. He chuckled, opening the scroll. In here are medical reports of the procedure, information you can confirm through Jiraiya and a Dr. Yakushi concerning the expected lethality of the procedure in question. Jiraiya gave you this information. Minato wouldn't believe that, couldn't. That man treated him like a son. Would do anything to help him. No, he did not. Danzo shrugged. Not directly, at any rate. Apparently young Naruto was quite the master of stealth, planting audio recording devices within the Hokage Tower. It is quite fascinating material to listen to, I assure you. Especially the part where Jiraiya informs you the probability this procedure of yours would take all of Kyuubi's chakra to complete. Minato. Sume snarled. Tell us this isn't true. You know removing a biju can kill the container, you know that. Shikaku closed his eyes, letting the scroll continue down the table as he concentrated on his thoughts. It's not. I didn't. The Hokage stumbled over his words. We didn't know how much it would take. He could have. I mean, we had hoped. Shikaku grunted. As Anbu commander, I'm invoking Article 237.34 of the Konoha Military Discipline Charter and relieving you of your command and position until these charges can be investigated and innocence or guilt determined. He waved his hand, a squad of Anbu flickering into view on either side of the Hokage. Take him to the place of forgetting. Minato was dumbstruck as they gripped his arms and began dragging him off. He wasn't going to run, he wasn't going to fight his way out. In the end, Konoha was his village and he loved it, even if he perhaps should have chosen to love his son instead of wallowing in misery. What the hell was going to happen now? Danzo smirked as the Hokage was chained and removed, taking his seat and monitoring the clan leaders reviewing the evidence that had practically been handed to him on a silver platter. He had no idea why Tsunade and Naruto had given him the means he had been looking for to oust that fool of a fourth Hokage, but now he was glad for it. With Sarutobi dead, with Minato incarcerated, the list of potential Hokages was looking mighty thin indeed. Ah yes. Danzo thought in amusement, irony really is the best form of punishment. Stop running, you little monsters. Shizune screeched, slapping the kunai out of the air while glaring at the little devils she had been put in charge of. Honestly, she knew why Tsunade had sent her away from Konoha, sent her to this madman, but she had expected to be put to work on something intelligently stimulating. Here she was, the former apprentice to Tsunade the Sannin, and she had been reduced to taking care of a bunch of unruly brats. Kukuku. His hair-raising laugh echoed in the chamber. It was enough to send the little devils into submission, the Willow Kimimaro bowing low while Kitamaru, Sakan and Ukin, Jirobo, and that foul-mouthed bitch lined up and pretended to be the absolute little angels she knew they were anything but. Why so mean, Shizune-kun? They're just so excited to be receiving your instruction. Orochimaru. Shizune scowled, offhandedly contemplating just packing her bags and getting lost somewhere in the elemental nations. She couldn't go back to Konoha. Tsunade's plan made it very clear that if she did, she'd be arrested, likely tortured and possibly executed when they discovered she knew about her master's plan to kill the third. Not that she cared about that, especially after finding out just how much that blasted old man had done to ruin Tsunade's life, and even her own with Dan's death. Would you mind terribly if I accidentally dissected these brats? She glared pointedly at the red head, especially that foul-mouthed girl. Now, no need to be angry. The snake Sannin chuckled lightly. I bring glad tidings for my newest subordinate. Oh, Tsunade did it. Orochimaru smiled sadly. Sarutobi is dead, which I will admit, disappoints me. I was so looking forward to ending him myself. First come, first serve. Shizune sneered nastily. Tsunade wouldn't have ever forgiven you if you had. Yes, well, as you say, first come, first serve. He shrugged lightly, but that's not the best part. It seems our dear slug princess managed to escape. Shizune blinked. What? But how? We both know her plan would have left her trapped in Konoha. Apparently the Kyuubi Jinchuriki took offense to his daddy. The snake Sannin shrugged, and what better way to spite him than to brazenly escape Konoha with the woman who had butchered the late great Sarutobi Hiruzen. Huh. Shizune tried to think of what she knew about the Jinchuriki, about the ostracized child kept in relative isolation and ignored by everyone. I bet there is a story there. He's just 6-year-old, I don't really see how he could have helped. There seems to be quite the mystery surrounding Naruto-kun. Orochimaru smiled thinly. I do hope she brings him here. He would be an excellent case study for me and my researchers. You think she'll come here then? The mousy girl grunted, nodding the more she thought about it. Of course she will. I'm here. Indeed you are. The older man allowed, stepping in circles around the girl with golden eyes narrowed in thought. Tell me, how susceptible would she be to the idea of crushing Konoha once and for all? Don't think she'd care. Shizune allowed. She's a missing nin. All villages are technically her enemy now. Konoha just has the bad luck of being the village everything she loved was killed for. She paused thoughtfully. Frankly, I imagine she'd just stick around and work with you until you get fed up with the amount of sake you'll have to give her. That's amusing to hear. Orochimaru laughed. Ah yes, Tsunade and her love of drink, he had almost forgotten about that little trait. Well then, hop to it, my little subordinate, these children won't train themselves. Tayuya grinned as Orochimaru left. Little Miss Prissy bitch. Train us. Up joke. Shizune grinned maniacally as she pulled Sanbon from her sleeves. I may not be able to kill you, but trust me, I know enough about the human body to make you wish you were dead, you little bitch.